Okay, I'll go ahead and start the meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee meeting of Thursday, October 12th, 2023, called to order at 1:04 p.m. I'll go ahead and do roll call. Terry Majewski is here. Ricky Riojas.
Here.
Joel Ireland. You here, Joel?
Here, yeah, here, sorry, here. Here.
Okay. Jan Mulder.
Here.
Savannah McDonald.
Here.
Carol Griffith.
Here.
Great. We have a quorum. Okay, item 2 is approval of the legal action report / minutes for the meeting of September 14 only. September 28th is not ready yet. So could I have a motion to approve for September 14 as submitted?
This is Ricky. I move to approve as submitted.
Thank you. And who will second?
This is Joel, second.
Okay, is there any discussion on those minutes? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and call roll. Terry says aye. Ricky?
Aye.
Joel?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Savannah?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Passes unanimously 6-0. And at this point, I would like to, instead of moving on with item 3, I would like to deal with item 4 first. It's National Register of Historic Places nomination. 4A, Barrio San Antonio. It's southeast of downtown Tucson's core and south of the University of Arizona. It's nominated under National Register Criterion A. The period of significance is 1912 to 1973. It's my understanding that this will be on the HSRC agenda on November 3rd. Is that correct, Jody?
Correct.
And so Jody will need to write a letter with the CLG's comments on the nomination. And you received, Jody sent us all the one public comment on this item that was received from, let's see, Mr.
Greg Clark.
And he's a resident in the Miles neighborhood, so I hope you a chance to look at that. I also sent you a motion that we did when we reviewed other National Register nominations so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of what we're supposed to be saying. You know, it's a general idea for structure and motion. So, Jody, do you want to give us any background?
I do not, but Greg Clark has asked to have this read into the record, his comment. So would you like me to do that?
Yes, go ahead and do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, folks. Please accept the attached letter, also appended below, as public comment regarding agenda item 4A at tomorrow's PRS meeting. I would also like to make a brief statement of the call to the audience, simply to make sure that my public comment is considered by the commissioners. I did respond to him and let him know that these are read into the record. So he was okay with that. To Tucson-Pima County Historical Commission Plans Review Subcommittee, RE October 12th, 2023 PRS meeting, agenda item 4A, Barrio San Antonio NRHP application. Dear Commissioners, I am writing to question the appropriateness of including the Park Avenue Flood Detention Basins 1 and 2 as a contributing resource, quote unquote, site in the proposed Barrio San Antonio Historic District. The NRHP application form shows that this area in figures 1, 2, and 3, it is open space at the northeastern corner of the proposed historic district and appears to comprise about 40% of the total land area of the district. It is the first item listed in table 1. It is called Arroyo Chico Greenway, designated as the landscape/park and incorrectly given a construction date as, quote, development in tandem with Barrio since initial platting, unquote. While the application before you makes the case that the neighborhood portion of the proposed district meets National Register Criterion A, there is scant discussion of why the open space merits designation as a contributing resource. No reason Reasoning is given to explain why the area could be considered to be associated with events that have made significant contribution to broad patterns of our history. But most importantly, the area is not quote unquote historic. It did not exist as a park, and there is no evidence that it was used as such during the period of significance. It is new modern construction. It is a FEMA flood control facility, a wide, deep pit excavated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 2011-2012, completed in December 2012, and then turned over to Pima County Natural Resources, Parks and Rec for landscaping. Subsequent work by Pima County in consultation with the adjacent neighborhoods, including the Miles neighborhood and other stakeholders, has resulted in the park now called the Arroyo Chico Multi-Use Project. Revegetation is slowly taking hold. Numerous new amenities exist on the site now, including patches of turf, public art installations, sidewalk walking paths, a BMX bicycle recreation area, and native habitat restoration. The site even has a 1985 warehouse/storage building at 211 South Fremont that is used as an office and equipment facility by PCNRPR ground staff. This building does not appear on the inventory list or on table 1 of this application. Long gone is the steep-sided wash shown in figure 8 from 1924, which required the still footbridge shown in figure 9. The area bears no resemblance to the narrow, naturally vegetated wash channel that it was prior to 2010. In those olden days, one could not easily get down into it or up out of the arroyo, except where Highland Avenue descended to cross it. That ravine was bordered by flat lots level in elevation to the surrounding streets and houses. But during the period of excavation, the area was almost completely denuded of vegetation. Thousands of tons of dirt and caliche were removed, utterly transforming the landscape. The Army Corps built berms, levees, concrete bridges, tunnels, coverts, and floodgates. The area is now the wide, gentle slope basin described in the NRHP application form on page 7. Quote, the neighborhood's northeastern edge descends in elevation and shows substantial improvements, including vegetated stormwater retention basins, as well as recreation areas and urban trails, unquote, and unobstructed views. No character-defining features of historical significance remain in place from a time prior to 2010. Even the steel pedestrian bridge shown in figure 9 has been relocated 1 block east and is now part of the sidewalk along Highland Avenue. It is curious that there is another quote unquote site offered in NRHP application that is classified as non-contributing resource due to its age, even though it is older than the flood basin natural area. That site is San Antonio Park, built in 2005-2007, a full 5 years before the Park Avenue flood detention basins. One of the authors of this application document was gracious enough to answer some of my questions about this topic and essentially said that there is no reason for concern that a historic district designation would restrict proposed future changes to landscaping, recreational facilities, or features, art installations, or other construction. It was implied that no restrictions on future development or uses would accompany the NRHS designation. If that is the case, then what on earth is the reason for trying to designate this area as a contributing resource to the BSA Historic District? It is a dedicated flood retention facility, natural open space, and recreational area. This is probably the most restrictive use possible. What could be the value of overlaying a contributing historic resource category on it? Thank you very much for your consideration. Sincerely, Greg Clark, resident Miles Neighborhood, member, Miles Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Jody. Okay, let's go ahead and have Jennifer present, and we can ask her questions. We can ask her about the items that Mr. Miles raises in the letter. And one option that Jody gave us when she and I were emailing about it, which I think I passed on to all of you, was that we could say that we would like this forwarded on with the CLG letter to SHPO for consideration by Historic Sites Review Committee on November 3rd. So, okay, Jen, would you like to begin? Do you want to share?
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. You guys have a very full agenda and lots of attendees. So I appreciate you all moving this up for me so that I have the opportunity to talk to everyone and address some of Greg's concerns. So this project was initiated by the neighborhood association in part because they were concerned about some of the development and potential overlays associated with Sunshine Mile because they are adjacent to it. There is lots and lots of consideration on what would constitute this district. For those of you that have had the opportunity to review the nomination, you'll see that the district that is getting designated is much smaller than the neighborhood at large, in part because there's been lots of intrusive development, lots of light industrial development as well. The Los Barrios was originally part of this, but they've chosen not to participate in this process. And so, so that's some of the background. The most salient thing about this neighborhood is that it is basically the first Mexican-American suburb outside of the downtown area. That's how it was sort of originally developed. It's not necessarily as much of that as it used to be, but certainly once upon a time, that was kind of what it was. So to get to, and again, I can answer any more specific questions after that, but I think the more pressing issues are Greg's concerns over the inclusion of Arroyo Chico. So I think some of it is a little bit of an interpretive situation here between Greg's interpretation of this area, this landscape, and my interpretation. So I'd like to start by explaining that the Arroyo Chico, as far as precedent goes, the Arroyo Chico is also a contributing resource to several other historic districts in the Tucson along its course, including Colonia Solana, for example, as well as Broadmoor or Broadway Historic District. That's all of which are all south of Broadway, between basically Park Avenue and Alvernon. So there is a precedent for this piece of the Arroyo being designated as a contributing resource to several historic districts. And so we're sort of following precedent here a little bit. The other thing too is that, when we're evaluating landscapes, so there's a little bit of leniency when we evaluate landscapes. So some of the kind of requirements for integrity, whether or not something was built within the last 50 years, those sorts of things are not quite the same with the landscape. So the idea with the landscape is that it's going to morph and change over time. So for example, plants, on average don't live more than like 40 years at a time unless you're really good about watering them and taking care of them. And so when we evaluate linear resources, and particularly in this case, a landscape, what we look at and what we're most concerned with is the alignment. And so if the general alignment has remained consistent over its history, that is what we're most important. That to us is the most important sort of evaluation criteria on which to assess its integrity. So regardless of the fact that there have been, pathways or new plantings or things like that throughout its history, more recently within the last 15 years, as Greg pointed out, is that what we're concerned about is that the location the same? Is the alignment more or less the same? And again, if you have side-by-side maps, it helps to sort of to clarify this. But the piece of the Arroyo that has the alignment has remained. So the alignment doesn't necessarily mean the same width. It doesn't necessarily mean the same depth. It just means if you were to look at it from an aerial perspective, it essentially is in the place that it started out when the neighborhood was created. And so that's where that sort of origins of platting gets associated with the creation of this park as the quote unquote date of construction. Obviously, it really honestly predates it, but as far as the history of the neighborhood goes, that's roughly around when it was as part of, sort of part of the neighborhood. The additional thing to keep in mind is that we're only doing a segment of this landscape and with the district. So there's other aspects or other pieces of this landscape that are not included. So should Miles neighborhood pursue National Register designation, there's certainly other aspects and pieces of this park that they could pick up in their own designation. So additionally, if we look, for those of you that have the nomination in front of you, if you are to refer to figure 8 on section 8, page 41, which Greg brought up, you will see that the reason that there is a historic association being attached to Barrio San Antonio versus Miles neighborhood, for example, is because Barrio San Antonio was starting to be built out at the time that Arroyo Chico was a bounding line of this neighborhood. Directly north of it, you can see that Miles neighborhood is starting to get platted out, but there is no development along or adjacent to Arroyo Chico, unlike Barrio San Antonio, which had a direct association, at least in 1925, based on the historical images that we were able to find. So it provides some of that sort of historical connection. Not to mention that some of the infrastructure that was put in the 1930s was created by members of Barrio San Antonio. There is a neighborhood history that was created by the Neighborhood Association, in which there's lots and lots of descriptions about community members, children, families interacting with, playing in the wash and the Arroyo Chico. And so while I understand that the name, some of the features within that landscape have changed over time and they are more recent in time, it does not negate its association. It also acts currently as a bounding line between Miles neighborhood and Barrio San Antonio. And the interesting thing too about this, again, as sort of reiterated in the nomination, is that the way that these two neighborhoods, despite the fact that they are literally side by side, they both developed in very different kinds of ways. And we have historical documentation describing that early relationship between the community members and the Arroyo Chico. So hopefully that answers some of the concerns and the questions. So I'm happy to open it up for anything else anybody would like to know or ask.
Great, thanks, Jen. Commissioners, would you like to just indicate if you have questions or not about the nomination or about Mr. Clark's comments?
This is Joel. Excuse me. There was mention of the connection with this and the Sunshine Mile. Can you go into that issue a little bit more?
Sure. So what some of the neighborhood residents have expressed to me is that, there are potential overlays, specifically along Sunshine Mile and maybe about a block or so deep, that there's concerns about overlays that would increase height and density along that corridor. And so whether, it's founded or not, there is neighborhood concern that there will be encroachment into their neighborhood. There would be visual sightline obstructions, that there's the potential for tear downs, infill, those kinds of things. So lots of potential for intrusive development into their neighborhood. And so through this designation, they're hoping that this will give them a little bit of leverage. So oftentimes, if you're a historic neighborhood versus just a neighborhood without designation, you have a little bit more of a voice, and you have a little bit more of a seat at the table. And so that's part of the impetus behind this, is that the desire from the neighborhood is that they won't get swept up into this zoning overlays that come along with the redevelopment of the Sunshine Mile.
So if we recommend the overlay, then the idea is that it gives more protection from that sort of
So the National Register nomination will not supersede that overlay. If there's any additional overlays that go into that neighborhood. Currently there are not, it shouldn't, but there are certainly, the potential for additional areas to encroach farther and farther south into the neighborhood. Currently there's not, but there is definitely concern about what gets built along the Broadway corridor and whether or not that is, like I said, it's a visual intrusion from the neighborhood. So if you're looking north onto Broadway, you now have multi-story buildings like the ones across the street. So there's some concern of that. But basically what it does is it provides a little bit more of a voice for the community, that they can push back, that there's, it makes the process a little more difficult, to be able to do certain kinds of things if you've got that designation. But it certainly would not prevent any of it necessarily from happening.
Thank you. That was a good explanation. Yeah. Thank you.
And Joel, this is Terry. So basically all we're talking about is, do we support this National Register nomination? It doesn't mean, can't say that we support it, but ask SHPO to consider a few things, or to look at the comments from Mr. Clark and whatever. But again, it's not like an HPZ that provides protection per code. And I know you know that. So, but I just wanted to say that for the record. So, okay, do you have any other questions? Or if not, who's next?
This is Ricky. I'm in support of this project. It's very in-depth. I'm glad to see the history of that. As for the explanation that you gave in response to the public comment, I really appreciate that, because I did have concerns after reading that public comment, but I feel like having that explained, I understand why it's included in there now, and the previous precedents that have been set around town for including that within the designation.
Great.
Thank you. Carol, do you have anything?
Yes, I just would like to again thank Jennifer for once again providing us with a really very comprehensive and well-written nomination. It is really a nice nomination, and it's an interesting neighborhood, you know, because of all the transitional sort of things going on there. I found it very interesting, and I guess the only thing is the number of contributing properties versus those that are not is pretty tight. So hopefully this will keep the neighborhood intact, what's left, the historical portions of it. But
Yeah,
thank you,
I mean,
Jen.
thank you, Carol. Yeah, I mean, that is a challenge. I mean, I would have liked to have included some more properties like where the Highland School is. And unfortunately, you'd have a historic building. And then because there's been so much, you know, change over time, especially anytime you have a sort of a lower income neighborhood, they're always ripe for that intrusive, you know, incursions into those neighborhoods, especially these kinds of communities are typically, you know, located in marginal, what would consider marginal areas at the time. And so they're always the ones that get redeveloped first. And so there's been lots of tear downs and infills. And so you'll have a historic home next to, you know, a U of A architecture school project, you know, not that the architecture school project is bad, but what it does is it limits those numbers of contiguous buildings that are of historic age. And like the Highland School, it was really important to the community, and I would have loved to be able to include it, but it has changed so much, you know, over time, you know, so it was not able to include it, but yeah, it's definitely a narrow number. And I've talked to residents about things that they can do to get some of those statuses changed from non-contributing to contributing, so that people seem open and amenable to getting that opportunity to have the status of the property changed at some point down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Savannah.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And I agree with Carol. Very compelling, well-researched, and worthy of this National Register nomination application, in my opinion. The only thing that I was struggling with was orienting myself, and I was looking for a map that had all the kind of bounding street names. So that would be so minor, but just maybe the one that's got all the green and red on it.
Yeah,
having the street names that kind of incorporate and create that boundary of designation.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's minor. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that totally makes sense. You know, I forget sometimes. I get so embedded in something that I forget. I'm like, oh yeah, nobody might know where this actually is. If they're driving around.
Jen, which figure is that if we were to include that in the motion?
Oh,
figure 3 on page 12, I think, was the one it's just like a perfect scale for it.
Yeah.
I think it's repeated later too, maybe.
It does, yeah. It's in the photo point map. So yeah, that figure 3. Yeah, that's true. That's funny. I didn't even like notice that. But yeah, okay, I'll write that down.
Okay. All right then, Jan, do you have anything?
Yeah, I appreciate Savannah bringing that up. I found myself doing the same thing. I'd refer to landmarks I was familiar with and then kind of count streets over. But yeah, it was really interesting and a joy to actually read this nomination. And I appreciate you're addressing both the complexity and the distinctions of this neighborhood, and also talking about kind of the living nature of the structures there and the evolution over time. That was really a nice touch. My initial primary concern was just a response to Greg Clark's comments, and I feel really comfortable with your explanation. I also think it would be helpful for us to forward that on to recommend it be included in the package to SHPO, but I appreciate your explanation and description of its inclusion.
Sure, absolutely. And I think Greg brings up a good point, and that it needs to be clarified in the nomination. And so following, HSRC's review in early November, I can, modify that in the nomination so that is explicitly clear.
Yeah, that would be nice. It also sounds like, and as Carol mentioned, kind of the the fine dividing line between the number of contributing versus non-contributing structures. It sounds like at least some of them are non-contributing just because of limited visibility, perhaps through vegetation and things
Right.
like that. So there seems like there are some opportunities for sure to expand that. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Great. And Jen, you will be presenting, you will be at HSRC on the 3rd?
I will, yes, on the 3rd, I will be, yes.
Right, so that you could explain this and since, you know, fortuitously, I will be at that meeting as well, running it. We can, you know, I can ask that question so that everybody's clear on what that is. So, okay, if there's no other comment or question, then possibly someone would be willing to make a motion supporting, sounds like we'd like to support the nomination, include Mr. Clark's comments, forward those along, and say that, you know, say something about we would like SHPO to be aware of them and something, you know, we agreed with the explanation from Jennifer, whatever, from the preparer. So, and then maybe we want to add about figure 3 to include the bounding street names on that figure and possibly on that other one. What was that other one? Do we want both of them or just minimally on that?
Yeah, the other one is the photo point map at the end. So it's not as necessary on that one, but definitely figure 3 needs it.
Okay. So who would be willing to make a motion to include those points if you all are in agreement with them? Okay, so
I'll do it.
okay, go ahead, Jane.
Let's see, where are we? In the matter of the National Register nomination for Barrio San Antonio, southeast of downtown Tucson's core and south of the University of Arizona, according to National Register Criterion A, with a period of significance of 1912 to 1973. We support the nomination with a condition to include Greg Clark's comment letter in forwarding the nomination to SHPO. And we also suggest inclusion of the bounding street names in figure 3 and if possible in the photo point map.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Carol.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Okay, if not, call roll. Terry votes aye in the motion. Ricky?
Aye.
Joel?
Yes.
Jan?
Aye.
Savannah?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Great. So passes unanimously 6-0. And thank you again, Jen. And I'm glad we're able to do this because it would have been more difficult if you hadn't been on to answer our questions.
Yes, yes. No, thank you guys for making that adjustment for me. And thank you, Greg, for your thorough read of the nomination and for submitting your comments. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay. All right, we'll move back then to item 3, which are the historic preservation zone review cases. We review these under UDC section 5.8/TSM 9-02.0.0 and historic district design guidelines and the revised Secretary of the Interior Standards and Guidelines. 3A is the continued case SD 0223-00027 at 5360 East Fort Lowell Road. This is for construction of a new perimeter wall landscaping remodel. It's a full review. In the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone, it's a contributing resource. Well, you know, it's got a contributing resource and I think a non-contributing resource. Anyway, we also received some notes from Jody. PDSC review of Fort Lowell HPZ project. There's 2 included, but about this case and another address. So, Jody, do you want to just give us a summary of where we are? And we do have the minutes from the Fort Lowell meeting where that's correct. I hope everybody has.
Tara, it's kind of hard to understand you. You're going like in and out.
Okay, I wonder what's going on. Is that any better?
That's a little better.
Yeah, I might have had something on my microphone. It's a very weird computer. Okay, Jody, do you want to just summarize where we are up to this point?
Sure. So the project, as you noted, was heard by PRS on September 14th. And PRS remanded the project back to Fort Lowell. Fort Lowell heard it on September 26th, and continued it with some revisions that they requested. They held a special meeting on October 3rd, where they recommended approval of the project, their approval with conditions. So a motion to approve the project with following conditions: that the front wall does not exceed 4 feet in height except surrounding the front gate, that the fence proposed along the east lot line is metal as shown on the submitted plans, that the fence along the west lot line is a mixture of both masonry and metal materials, that the masonry sections of the west perimeter wall are meandering, quote unquote, lumpy, and vary between 3 and 5 feet in height, that the southern portion of the west perimeter wall is 5 feet in height with metal paneling in between the wall sections, that the owner retain a rural quality of the property, that the color of the proposed perimeter walls are reviewed during construction as a courtesy review, that the proposed metal fencing rusticates, that the distance between the fence pickets is between 2 and 4 inches, that the front gate is 6 feet in height and is not intended to set a precedent for other properties within the preservation zone, that the overall project will be organic, that the opening within the gate maintain visual access to the rear of the property, that all references to future work are removed from the submitted plans, and that the locations of the motor vehicle parking be removed from the submitted plans, and that the proposed landscaping is not within the purview of this specific review. And the motion was seconded and passed with a vote of 5-1. There's also a letter that the city clerk forwarded to you from Colleen Sackheim and Barry Spicer, if you want me to read that into the record.
Was that the same letter that we received with the first one, or was it a different one?
It's dated October 11th at 3:31 p.m. It's addressed to you.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Okay. That's the one we were talking about. Yes, please go ahead and read that, because to be equitable.
Okay. Dear Terry Majewski, Chair, Tucson Pima County Historical Commission, we are writing to express our concerns and great disappointment regarding the decision the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board made during their special meeting October 3rd, 2023, to grant a 5-foot-high solid wall with metal fencing at 5360 East Fort Lowell Road, which lies within the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone, FLHPZ. In our view, this decision is a departure from the character and values that have long defined our historic zone, and we respectfully request that you reconsider the decision. It is also a departure from Code and Design Review FLHC Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board guidelines. This proposed wall metal fence, as presently designed, does not fit into the historic character of our historic neighborhood. The Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone, as part of the old Fort Lowell neighborhood, has always reflected a unique charm characterized by its preservation of historical architecture, native landscaping, open spaces, and a commitment to maintaining the ambience of a bygone era. The decision to allow a solid wall and metal fencing is, in our opinion, out of step with the principles that have for several decades safeguarded the HPZ cultural and architectural heritage. The design and materials of proposed wall and metal fence clearly do not fit within the guidelines and code of the historic preservation zone in this city, and in particular, in the design and materials do not fit within the standards of the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone. Such a decision is likely to compromise the zone's historical integrity and visual appeal. A solid wall and its metal fencing would greatly disrupt the open and welcoming atmosphere that has been carefully maintained over the years. It may also set an inappropriate precedent that encourages further deviation from the district's established character. Historic preservation zones are both intended and designed to preserve the cultural, ecological, and architectural heritage of a historically significant place. Exceptions to HPZ standards, rules, and guidelines compromise the integrity and erode the values that those same standards, rules, and guidelines represent. When exceptions are made, both the process of making the exception and the exception itself erode the integrity of the historic zone and degrade our community values. Exceptions also diminish the authenticity of the HPZ and can lead to a weakening of the sense of history in the community and loss of cultural and community identity. Exceptions such as those effectively disrupt the visual harmony of the location and thereby negatively affect the feelings that such harmony elicits in residents and other viewers, thereby negatively affecting the overall sense of beauty and charm of the neighborhood community. This wall, metal fencing, will do just that, negatively affect the overall sense of beauty and charm of the OFLN community. Allowing such an exception will likely also lead to similar incorrect and inappropriate attempts to use it as a precedent, as has already happened with previous inappropriate and illegal walls that have been used as precedents for the current wall metal fence proposal. Even though advocates say this exception is not intended to set a precedent, it will likely lead to a slippery slope whereby the integrity of the HPZ is further eroded as more exceptions are made. It must be remembered that the construction of a pool and enclosure and ensuring that the pool and enclosure comply with city code does not and should not directly influence or have anything to do with the proposal or construction of the wall metal fence. There are two separate issues. Decisions about the construction of the proposed wall metal fence should adhere to the code and historic preservation guidelines, regardless of other projects like a pool. Hence, it has become clear that exceptions that have already been made continue to compromise and erode the integrity and values of the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone. They will likely again lead to their being used as precedents for future projects, just as they have for recent projects. Therefore, we should not allow another exception be made in this instance. In addition, as well as clearly demonstrated in Damian Klinko's letters of 9/11/23, 9/13/23, and 10/4/23, he correctly points out relevant code that applies to the construction of the wall at 5360 East Fort Lowell. He points out that the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board members were provided with inaccurate information upon which their decisions have been based. My apologies. Our understanding is that no property line survey was done to determine property line locations relative to this proposed wall metal fence project. The artistic rendering and plans presented to Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board at the special meeting on 10/3/23 seem unclear as to exactly where the proposed wall metal fences on the south, west, and east sides will be located, as well as their relationship to property lines. The artistic rendering also contained an inaccurate and misleading representation of the driveway to the Jamie House at 5352 East Fort Lowell Road and landscaping along the edge of that driveway on the property of the neighbor at 5344 East Fort Lowell Road immediately to the west. Another issue related to the artistic rendition is that it gave no idea at all as to where or what the proposed wall metal fence will look like on the south and east sides. The provisions of the code seem clear and straightforward enough as to what style construction is allowed within the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone. We should therefore comply with those provisions as they are written and prescribed. If the code is believed to be unclear, unfair, or otherwise inadequate, amending the code should be considered, a process for which there are proper and adequate procedures. It should be noted and remembered that nowhere does the code say its provisions are guidelines or that they are subject to interpretation. We would also better understand the decisions made on this matter if reasoning and rationales upon which the decisions are based were more clearly presented together with the decisions. We implore this committee to consider the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board's decision made at their special meeting on 10/3/23. Reconsider the Fort Lowell Historic Zones Advisory Board's decisions made at their special meeting on 10/3/23 and explore alternative solutions that align with the align with the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone's values and decades of long-standing commitment to preserving unique identity. By doing so, we can continue to honor our rich history and maintain the district's special place in our neighborhood community. We ask you to please weigh the long-term consequences and probable dramatic long-term impacts the proposed construction of the wall metal fence will have on this historic neighborhood. Thank you for your time and consideration of these concerns. We trust that with thoughtful review, we can find a more suitable solution that respects the district's historical significance. Sincerely, Colleen Sackheim and Robert Spicer.
Thank you for reading those comments, Kurt, and thank you, Ms. Sackheim and Mr. Spicer. I wanted to make one point very clear that neither Fort Lowell nor Plans Review makes a decision. We make recommendations that go to the planning director, who ultimately issues a decision letter. We simply make recommendations. So, okay, so who will be presenting this case, the revised plans?
I will.
Paul
Unless
would be
Jill, you
presenting
want?
the plans. Because Colleen wrote such a lengthy letter, and I don't want people to get confused by some things. I do just want to show a couple slides really quick, Paul, before you go into the current plans that were passed by the advisory board.
Yeah, you were a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen. Both you and Paul should be able to share your screen.
Okay, thank you. So before we get into what Paul shows us, I want to point out really quick here, this is from the Fort Lowell Neighborhood Association guideline as it relates to enclosures. It says here, fences, walls, or other physical features used to enclose open space or provide privacy must be compatible with the architectural style of the subject structure and the historic character of the development zone. Generally, adobe, stone, stuccoed masonry, ocotillo, and wrought iron are acceptable. And just for a reminder here as well too, these are walls that are currently existing around the neighborhood. Some of these walls have been here for a really, really long time. Some of these walls are new. Some of these are contributing historic properties. Some of these are non-historic contributing properties. But the point that I want to make here is that there are several walls that do exist. And over the course of the time that we've been through this process in the past 9 months, we have made many iterations based on the recommendations of both the Fort Lowell Advisory Board as well as your board as well too. I think that we've come up with a solution that meets both the code and the neighborhood guidelines. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing there, and then I'm going to have Paul go ahead and share what he put together most recently.
And thank you.
Let's see. Hang on just 1 second. There we go. So my name is Paul Reimer. I'm an architect. I'm working with Jill and Aaron Heater, who are the property owners of this address, which you and so what you're seeing in the first page here, and I won't dwell on it very long, but just to give a little orientation, this is a view from the north, the Fort Lowell side of the property. It's a computer rendering. We're seeing there's a historic structure here to the side, and then there's this one's actually on the National Register. There's a house at the back, at the very back of the property, the south of the property, which is not on the National Register, built in the 40s, but certainly in the eyes of the city, contributing structure to the character of the neighborhood. So this structure here exists, this wall here to the left, which tops out at just under 6 feet. It's a historic wall and it exists. And so our work really starts at the back end of the southwest edge of the existing structure, and we then begin to envelop the yard. And I'll go to the plan here quickly so we get a better sense. I'm going to skip over the landscape drawings because they're really not part of this. And so here's our plan. And so back to where we were in that previous rendering, we were standing here on the north end of the property along Fort Lowell and looking towards the south. This here is the existing main residence. And then in the left of that picture, we were looking at this existing, what's going to be their guest house, but it's a very small structure. So what we're proposing here in the site wall, or I'll back up for a second. The new pool in question is right here. You'll see here that there is no backyard. The only yard for the property is really between the two between the two structures. And so we are proposing that first we demolish an existing wood fence here, which was not ever approved by any committees or anything. That's at least a 6-foot high fence. That comes down, and then we erect a perimeter wall, and then it wraps back to the existing house here and stops. And then as you move around the south end of the property, the existing wall there is unchanged. It doesn't get demolished. It stays. And then as you get around to the east side of the residence here, north is to your right, by the way. We start with a new fence again. And so there's really just two types of fences here. There's masonry that's stucco clad, and then there is an iron fence. And so we're breaking them up and using them in different ways and different combinations in order to get some variety, some interest, and sort of try to fit in with the intermittent quality of his existing walls around the neighborhood. And so I'm not going to break it down here because I think that there are a few renderings we can look at that will help illustrate this best. But in the middle of all that, you heard in the description, there's a gate here, a new gate, that pedestrian gate that allows access to the main house, which is right here. You heard that there's mention of the parking spaces that are on the plans. Those have been in existence. This is where people have parked on the property since it's been a long time. And there's really no other place to park. So I'll leave that there and I'll move to the last page in our drawings, which were these elevations. So the most important one, I think, is the one that faces the street here. You're seeing the existing guest house here, which is not part of the project, will not be touched. You can see we go first as we move from left to right. We start out with the word iron fence has been used. It's not iron, it's steel. And its finish will be first sandblasted and then gun bluing applied to turn it black, and then it'll be oiled so that it never, on its way to rust, which of course being steel it inevitably will, it won't go through the phase that I think is rather uncomfortable where it turns orange. It basically will just go from the very, very dark charcoal to the very dark brown, which is the intention here, to get it to go then eventually. So there's the steel fencing here, then it goes to the masonry stucco covered wall with a rise on either side of the new gate, and then comes back down. This height right here is the neighborhood sort of maximum of 4 feet. And because the pool requires a 5-foot fence around it, we have the steel fencing set on top of that for the final foot to get us from 4 to 5 feet. And then as it wraps around the corner, you'll see when we move to this drawing right here, the wall drops away for a bit. We go to the steel fencing. I'm showing you the drawings that were submitted, and then I'll show you some of the modifications that were made during the meeting. But I'm going to show you the original drawings here. There's a 3-foot wall here that the fence comes in front of. More open area here with the steel fencing, and then here's the stretch of masonry stucco covered wall here that runs back with the existing residence right here. So this is running along the west side of the property. Just a few detail notes. I don't want to get into the steel fencing here at this moment because I think the rendering shows it much more clearly, and I want to take you there. And this is the wood gate with with openings in it. Again, I think that the renderings will probably be more illustrative. I'm going to give the same caveat that I always give with renderings that come out of the computer. They don't, at least I am not skilled enough, I'll say, to render things that have distressed or historic qualities to it. So the renderings that you're going to see are they have a sort of clean look, which is inaccurate. Just one moment here as I get that one. Just a second. Here we go. I'm going to zip to the front here. So again, this is a rendering similar to the one that you saw at the outset of this presentation with the new wall here, the existing structure here to the left. Just a person there to give you a sense of its scale. So we top out at 6 foot around the gate and we come back down to 4. As we move to the right and we come around the corner here, you'll see that the wall breaks down. These trees here that you're seeing, I think there might have been a comment from that you heard earlier that these were inaccurate. Their placement is accurate. The computer just doesn't have anything quite as irregular as the mesquites that are there. They're, the trunks come out of the ground and they go in a variety of direction, but the location of those trees is accurate and they're intended to remain. So you'll see that the iron fence is on top of the wall, and as the wall drops away, the steel fence continues. And as we move along and we moved along the west edge towards the south, there are moments here where, there's just steel. You can completely see into the property, across the property. And this is the wall, the masonry wall as it moves towards the south. I just wanted to get a little bit closer to this fence element so you get a sense of what it's made of. These elements are called out in the drawings, but I'll just go through them very quickly. All the verticals, they basically have a repeating pattern where there's at 2-inch centers right now. There are these vertical rods, could be rebar, could just be regular flat steel rod that are bent at the top in an ocotillo-like manner. And then every third one is a 1-inch by 1/2 inch steel angle. Just, it sort of breaks things up, I think, so that there's a little bit more variety in it. This is a closer view of those. You can see those angles. And then every 4 feet, the supports are 3-inch flat bar that are spaced apart. They're paired and spaced apart so you can, to increase visibility. When you're looking straight at them, they basically disappear. And then during the meeting, we had the luxury in the last meeting with the group in Fort Lowell to all be in the same room. And so we started batting around different ideas. And because we had the computer program with us, we were able to make some changes during the meeting. So those changes, as were noted, is there's a couple of walls here. This one had been 3 feet. This one had been 5 feet. It was the owner's desire to make those a little bit taller. So they are now shown at 5 feet. This again remains at 4 feet here. And so this is the final view. There were comments about the proportion of this and maybe trying to reduce the sort of mass of this and cut the slope of this a little bit more steeply. But otherwise, that's basically where we ended up. And so I will turn it over to you guys, and just if anybody wants to go back to a specific drawing or a rendering, please let me know and I'll go there.
Okay, Mr. Reimer, let me ask you first, the open areas, do we have any view of, of the inside? People would be able to look through this, walk up to this and look, right? Because the wall that wraps around isn't going to prevent people from looking through these open slats, correct?
That's correct. I mean, this wall here at 4 feet, you would be able to walk up to it and see over this. There's nothing keeping you from looking through it. And this fence, the proposal for this fence design is the same fence that would run along the east side of the property on the other side of things. So it's the same fence.
without a pony wall behind it, correct?
There's no masonry walls, other than just immediately east of the house, there is an existing short masonry wall where the fence would run on top of that, but the majority of the fence would be just as you see here in this section right here. So it's totally, you see through it. And things, wildlife can pass through it.
Okay, could you, well, let's see if there's other questions, but I think it might be helpful to know how you've addressed things that are in their motion. So basically they said that they asked that the front wall not exceed 4 feet in height except surrounding the front gate. Are they just referring to where the gate is or the whole area that you're showing us right now?
So I'm going to go back to the front view, and I think everybody in the meeting had a similar understanding of this. There was actually an equation that was forwarded in the meeting that maybe I'll go to the first image here. So this is the 4-foot line here, right? So that hasn't changed. And so the equation that we were given is that 4-foot line, if you continue it across into this opening right here, we were told that if we took the area of that and those two openings and combined them and basically split them in two, we basically get, I'm going to call it a credit to be used on the part of the wall that then rises to meet the gate. So it was agreed that what's being shown here is more than what would actually be built. We would have to diminish the size of each of these going forward. That was their view.
So where it was noted originally that you would go up to 6 feet right there in the front, it would be reduced.
The height would not be reduced, but the amount. So if you can see my mouse, the existing line is here. The new line would come further and rise more steeply here to get to 6 feet. We'd have to reduce that on both sides.
Okay, is that what they're referring to, that they say that the masonry sections of the west perimeter wall are meandering, lumpy, and vary between 3 and 5 feet in height?
No, they're referring to the walls that are here. Actually, let's see, they're referring to this and that piece. This is the west. It's an oblique view, but this is the west side. So they're talking about this wall and that one. These are the ones that are allowed to go to 5 feet. So this one, the wall is maintaining at 4, except at the gate.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is turn this over to Commissioner. So what we're seeing is he's explaining some ideas that came up after he showed. So these are the same revised plans that you went over with them on the 3rd, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then explaining areas that you discussed with them that you're willing to further change.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was almost like a big design meeting.
Okay. All right. So Commissioners, who would like to go next with your questions?
Yeah, I'll go. This is Jan.
Okay.
My first question is, can you show us on that oblique when you're looking in where the pool is?
Right here, I would say the pool is back right in here. It's an in-ground pool, so it doesn't stick up at all, but it's back in here.
I thought it was behind that other house. Okay, that's kind of immaterial, but I was just trying to get it placed. Early on, one of the meetings, we had asked for a drawing of the development zone, and the examples that are being given, I believe Jill gave examples. Some are contributing, some are not. Some are legal, some are not. And that just really deviates from what I think we've looked at in the past. And it just, I think my interpretation is that some of the concern that's being expressed by some of the neighbors, that there's a reliance on examples of things that aren't contributing or things that weren't legally constructed. I haven't seen any examples of pickets on top of the masonry wall. And also it's my understanding that when there are requirements for wall height, that a picket wall or a metal wall, 6 feet or 5 feet, 4 feet, the height is the top of the wall, not, or the fence, not just the masonry wall, and then the steel fence is somehow in a different category. I think a 4-foot fence or wall is a 4-foot fence or wall. So I'm a little concerned that somehow we're being asked to deviate from standards to help balance maybe competing interests. I don't know. I think that's the planning director's job. We're really, in my feeling is, our job is to look at the code, which says there's a 4-foot requirement, look at the neighborhood, show us a development zone, and try and work within the historic standards. And I guess I'm just concerned that what we're seeing doesn't really do that. And we have a fence that seems like it's kind of modern, a modern interpretation, and in certain locations I'd be comfortable with it, but I'm just not sure it's appropriate in this location. So I've said a lot, but I am concerned that we're not seeing a tie to this and really what the code and the standards are asking of us. It's just kind of an interpretation.
Okay.
In the lull, if I could interject this, I know that the neighbor who wrote the comments in suggested that these are separate issues, and I would beg to differ that the pool fence requirements are minimum 5 feet. That can't be avoided. And so somewhere along the line that has to be addressed. So I don't really know what choice we're being given. It's been suggested that we do 2 different fences in 2 different locations, but if we have to get to 5 feet, we're going to have to do it somewhere.
Well, my understanding is the pool isn't being reviewed, and if we're not reviewing the pool and we're not really reviewing a pool fence, it is a structure and it probably should have been reviewed, but it wasn't reviewed. So to come after the fact and say now we're addressing a pool issue.
Well, Jan, it's my understanding, and Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, that pool fences are not subject to historic review.
Pool fences are subject to historic review, but historically we have not reviewed pools. And the comment was brought up by Damien that the pools should be reviewed. So the zoning administrator is taking a second look to look at what historically has been done. But in my time, we have not reviewed pools. We reviewed pool fences, but not pools.
Right, and the pool is quite a few feet back from this fence that we're looking at straight on. I mean, and so, you know,
Paul made it look like it was right in the corner, which is not where I thought it was.
I do have a question about that though. Usually when we're reviewing pool fences, like, are we reviewing them with the main pool fence being the main wall, like the main backyard wall?
that
Yeah, I
was
guess-
trying to get to. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think that was a question. Why don't, if, first of all, you know, can the pool be located, you know, as far back in the corner as possible, and then put a fence around the pool, not around the whole
So
property?
can I make a couple comments real quick, please? The pool already exists. The shotcrete is in the ground. So the location where it is located on this paper is where the pool is currently. If you put a pool fence directly around it, you're actually blocking multiple entryways. So you're blocking walkways, you're blocking ways of actually passing through. So the reason why we're working on trying to get a pool enclosure that surrounds more of the property is that so you're not blocking walkways, monuments, and other essential areas in the interior of the property.
And I think that explains why it's problematic that the pool was not reviewed and is now kind of just there. Paul, can you show us examples of contributing walls in the development zone that are treated like this, you know, this height and pickets on top of masonry?
I can't, and I think that it's fair to ask for precedent. But I walked around the neighborhood and found a lot of Ocotillo fencing. I found ruined adobe walls. I found some what I would call, because I'm a northerner, snow fencing, and some chicken wire, and none of that would really satisfy the requirements of having a pool. So yeah, we could put chicken wire up here, but if somehow we're going to have to get a fence around, we're going to have to deal with the requirements of having a pool.
For the whole property.
Well, around that yard, right? We're not putting it around this part of the property, for example. We're staying back. So I mean, the only yard that really exists for the property is really in this zone.
I guess, and I have just one other question, and then I'll just let others speak up. The fence, I guess that's on the south side, the quote front, is that the north side, the front fence?
The north is to the right.
Yeah, okay, so the front fence, that's the one with the lump in the middle on the gate?
Yeah.
That's not on the property line, is that correct?
That's correct. The property line is well to the.
So
to the
what you had said people could come up and look through that fence, but actually that's well into the property, so probably not, right?
Well, I mean, there are no obstructions. There's nothing preventing anybody from walking back there and viewing in, but you would, if you're a pedestrian walking along the street, you wouldn't normally go back there.
Okay. Now I just wanted to clarify that, yeah, that's not really publicly accessible. Thank you.
Jan, there is an access easement that you can see,
On the side,
the
and that's
west side.
open.
yeah, the
That
west
allows
side,
visibility. Yeah.
right. But I think, talking about the visibility at the front is not maybe perhaps accurate. I think if there were a 4-foot wall, you could see from the right of way probably the contributing structure in the back, or the structure in the back.
Jan, when there was one of the comments at the most recent meeting, we talked about this, not on the 28th, but on September 14th, I believe. It was Elaine Hill provided a response to somebody's comments that might have been Demian's, with examples of walls in Fort Lowell. Did you recall that comment? It was provided.
Right. What I still, I think this is part of the problem with the new system online that the city has. I tried to go back and look at previous submittals, and they're not accessible to even go and look at what I think there might have been some development zone things, or maybe that was a different project.
Oh, it was, this was a public comment made by Elaine that was included, that we received all of those either from the city clerk or Jody.
Right.
So,
but I think the examples we're talking about, again, I don't think Elaine was providing examples that were contributing in the development zone. It's really kind of a mishmash.
I just showed the example, so if you'd like me to pull up again, there are contributing historic properties. If you want me to point out which ones those are.
Which ones are in the development zone too. I don't think there is a map of the development zone in this submittal.
This is typically
I have a map.
Just for the record, typically fences are minor reviews, and this originally started out as a minor review, and then it got bumped up to the full review at the request of the chair.
Well, this is more than your typical minor review fence, which is probably why it got bumped up.
So Jan, here's the historic preservation zone. There are more walls located in this historic preservation zone, but I highlighted a couple in some pictures.
Right, but where's the development zone?
The development zone is along Fort Lowell.
Okay.
It goes all the way out to Craycroft.
Okay.
So here's
it's the
Craycroft. Here's
yeah,
Fort
so
Lowell.
it's so it's the end of the So it's the end, Craycroft is the end, and then the end of the HPZ is the other end. But it's
Except
both
for where
sides
it's
of the-
excluded.
yeah, that's I'm not sure why she has excluded, but the development zone is the HPZ, which is just ends just before San Pedro Chapel, which is that black star, and it's both sides of Fort Lowell all the way to
Got it.
Craycroft.
Okay.
This property up here is right across the street from me. 5349 East Fort Lowell Road. This is a
And-
6-foot straw bale stuccoed wall that was approved.
That was
This is a
permitted. and it's-
contributing historic property. I
and
know
it
that
was- Okay.
not
is that-
everybody necessarily agreed for it, but you even see like the National Register placard right here.
Well,
that is-
that's separate. So is it contributing to the historic zone and did it go through historic review?
Yes, to my understanding.
I think-
Jody, is that correct?
Jody,
Sorry, I had to get to the mute button. Yes.
Okay.
is this the one that the wall was built and then subsequent owners of the property installed that metal gate to allow visibility? Elaine, if you're on, is this the one?
I am, yes, I am.
It
on
was
it.
It was a code enforcement issue. It was a code enforcement issue.
Okay.
That went back and forth and then was reviewed by the board, and then the subsequent property owner, to get the property tax reduction, said, I'll install this fence to allow visibility.
So technically that fence passed when it should not have.
Kind of what it sounds like.
This fence was installed and it went on for 10 years as a code violation.
So not a great example
Not
for
a great
precedent.
example. Exactly.
Okay. Well, where are the next ones?
This is a couple doors down. This is 4 foot in front. It goes to 6 feet on the sides. So that's a wall. This
That one-
property,
Excuse me, Jill, 5328 was approved. It was reviewed and approved.
Okay.
Elaine, this is your property. Not to like call you out. I think you know that this is on here. But you would probably know the history more of your wall than I would.
Right. That was a fence that preceded, it was a wooden fence that preceded the historic zone. And the wall was installed sometime probably in the 80s without review. And I didn't own it at that time.
And then this is the wall right next door to me. This is a 6-foot wall. This is not a contributing property. But it is right next door.
It's a contributing property that's not historic.
Thank you.
And did the wall go through review?
Yes, with the house, when the house was built.
Got it. Okay.
There are other examples of 4 foot, another example of 4-foot wall. And there are several examples of 4-foot walls on non-historic properties
That were required through
that were reviewed and approved.
review. Okay.
And I do just want to put in a reminder, although like, once again, I do not want to downplay the significance of the home that we have, because it is significant and it is wonderful and it is a great example of the historic architecture of the neighborhood. But it is at today's date still considered a contributing non-historic property.
That's not true.
5354, the back or south property, not 5360, the one that won't be
The front property is a National Register property. Both properties are contributing to the historic zone. Both houses are contributing to the historic zone.
But
Is
isn't it considered contributing non-historic?
No.
The back
Both
one?
houses are contributing historic.
I thought it was listed as it wasn't old enough when they were doing the review to be considered historic at the time.
Both are
It's-
contributing to the historic zone.
Jody, can you clarify if that's correct?
Yes. So Elaine is correct. It's the rear house is not listed on the National Register, but it is part of the historic preservation zone. So it is locally listed as contributing historic, to the
And it-
historic preservation zone.
Right, and so if it's in the HPZ, it has more restrictive requirements than if it were.
It's regulated just like anything else in the HPZ. It's part of the regulations. It's getting a review. So the historic preservation design guidelines and the reviews still apply to that rear house. There is a hand raised from,
Okay,
um,
I'm sorry.
if you want to take that, from Rose Holstead and
Yeah.
Irene Fernandez.
This is Rose Halstead. I want to mention something about the pool. When I originally went down to the city and pulled the permits and the drawings for the original pool design, it says on there that you're supposed to have self-latching gates. So in order to have a gate, you have to have a fence around the pool. So if you refer back to your original permits of how that pool was passed, it assumes that there is a fence around the entire pool, and any opening such as windows or doors have to be met with a self-closing gate. So that's a whole separate fence that's going to be needed for the pool.
Well, I
So,
think technically
Rose,
your
the-
backyard fence can count as one of those, right?
But it's
Because like
not a
your
back,
front.
excuse me,
Correct.
it's not a backyard. That pool was permitted for 5354. And 5354, that's in the front of that property. The back of the property would be 5360, and the permit should have been pulled on that.
Oh, I think you got the addresses mixed up.
The back property, well, the pool permit says 5354.
And that's the main house. That's the house in the rear.
So
Jody, can we
That's right.
weigh in on that? If technically like the front of the guest house and the backyard of the main house share a back front yard area? Because it's all one open space back there.
Right, but the permit for the pool that
I'm
was
asking
submitted to
Jody
the
that
city-
question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ricky, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, they're talking about the permitting for the pool, whether it should have been the front or the back, but does that matter in the sense that the guest house and the main house both share a yard? Like that whole
It's-
backyard area is shared between the two of those.
It's my understanding those lots were combined. Yeah, the lots
Correct.
were combined.
it is one parcel.
Okay. So then that comment about which one it was pulled under is irrelevant. It's pulled under the property that we are reviewing.
Correct.
Correct.
And as it
Thank you.
relates to latching gates, the design that we are trying to get past, any openings would have proper latching gates. So that would not be a concern should this get approved.
The
Just to
only
back it
gate
up.
there that would be is that front one, correct? The one that goes like from the front of the yard directly into your backyard patio area? Is that the?
So that's the only like visible gate. So in the interior of the yard, there's going to be a little gate on the east side of the property. And there, I think that's pretty much it. Maybe those two gates.
Are those shown on Paul's drawings?
Yeah, the gate, I don't expect everybody to look at the hardware schedule, but the hardware schedule on the gate has self-closers and has the latching mechanism that are required for a pool.
No, but what I'm asking is it shown on your drawings? The location of that second gate?
I'm gonna bring up the drawings again, because I didn't
Yeah.
fully understand which gate you were talking about, Jill. Can you,
Yeah, so
The
you
main-
have it right there on the east side, Paul.
this one? Oh, right
Yeah.
here. Yeah, we did, that has not been drawn, that one or that one, but they're both in the steel fencing, so they would be,
Yeah, it's not wall or wood.
yeah. It's part of the steel fencing and it would match.
Okay. Jan, were you done with your questions?
Well, I guess now they have this plan in front. So is the pool there on the east side? Is that the pool?
This number 11 right here,
Yeah.
this is the pool right here.
Okay, and yeah, because that wasn't when you were showing on the perspective. So the shotcrete's in the ground, but you're still working to develop the site, is that correct?
We're unable to finish the plaster in the pool. Well, I mean, not unable to, but it wouldn't be recommended to finish the plaster in the pool until we have the enclosure finished.
Okay,
once
okay.
the plaster's
So,
in, we can fill.
so what was the comment about blocking off different?
Yeah, so
Wait. So this is a plan here, but in terms of if just the pool were fenced in, there could be ways to access the property internally. It might be different than what you have on your paper here.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think what she's saying, if you fenced the pool itself, and you when that was brought up to you earlier, you said that the fence would block a lot of things, but you could actually have gates there. Is that what you're getting at, Jan? That
Yeah, that you could have different circulation patterns that would accommodate just having the pool fenced, and then you can, change your circulation pattern. That may not be what you envisioned, but it wasn't reviewed as,
I think it's really hard to gain perspective without actually being there on the property, because you would be blocking, once you're in the interior of the property, the sight lines of this back house that we are kind of disputing over having visibility to. You have to have space around the pool to actually have like decking and things like that. So the fencing has to go out a little far, where it would block the entry to the south. It would block this view of the home back here. It would block the view of the front home. So believe me, I've definitely thought of a lot of alternatives to make this, to work with everybody. But it's just not really a great feasible option to put a fence directly around the pool if you were to see it in person.
But I've seen them where they weren't solid walls, that they were open with spaces between them, and they were that height. And I mean, you can see, and these properties were enclosed with a masonry wall, the exterior and the back. So if you looked over the back wall toward the pool, you can see through to the house. I mean, you could see over the pool through the fence with spaces between the bars. So anyway, that's just a question. That's why it's so difficult when, to try to do double duty with this very high wall. So anyway, so
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you. Thanks for your indulgence.
Ricky started with some questions. Do you have any further questions?
Yeah, so, I mean, our main thing is the historical review, right? Is it then a permitting issue anyways, if like we say the back wall has to be 4 feet but they need a 5-foot wall for their pool?
That would be a permitting issue. They need 5 feet.
So in this area, then like the wall, the backyard wall that we are reviewing has to be 5 feet, which already goes against what the Historic Zone Advisory Board has said.
Well, the perimeter wall doesn't have to be 5 feet. I think that's part of what's being discussed.
Because the perimeter wall is being used as the
pool fence. Basically,
the
whole property is being used as pool property.
Which, I mean, then, I feel like it just creates another position further down the line where you're in the same argument, but with permitting of not meeting the pool permitting process. The pool's an issue.
But our job isn't to review for pool compliance.
No.
Our job is to review for historic compliance.
And I think too, like realistically, how often are we reviewing a backyard fence? Like the issue is that they have two contributing properties on one plat of land, and I don't think it's unreasonable to expect somebody to want a fence taller than 4 feet in their backyard, which is what that may is for that we were talking about, and it may be taller than 4 feet. I think
Well, it's
this would
actually
be
the front yard, I
Front,
think.
it's the front yard.
It's the front yard, it's not the backyard, which is part of the challenge.
Well,
'Cause
but this could
they're-
be seen as our backyard. This is our only yard right here in the center.
But it's your street presence.
because they only have that pony wall in the front
Yeah,
that we
it is
previously,
only 4.
that nobody had an issue with the pony wall after it got modified. I might have more questions later, Terry, but can you skip to somebody else?
Okay, Joel, do you have anything?
Yeah, first of all, I think I'm agreeing with Ricky on this. And I'm a little confused as to what we're even talking about. The Fort Lowell Review Board, I tried to write down all the conditions they had. They approved some permutation of this fence, but with several conditions. And I guess I'm wondering what Jill thinks of all those conditions. I mean, are we still debating the conditions, or are they acceptable, or what's the status of those?
Was that question directed
That's a
towards
question,
me?
I guess, for you.
Yeah. So I think a lot of those conditions, and Elaine, you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of those conditions, I think, already really went with what was produced in the plans. I think they're just kind of like highlighting to make sure that these certain elements were absolutely continued in the final project as a recommendation. I don't have objections to anything that they recommended in the last meeting that we had.
I'd like to comment because you can see the difficulty we were under. Because the pool was not reviewed. The pool was already being constructed or had been constructed when this came to us about the wall. And Jill and I met on site. She met with other people. The architects on our board looked at the site. Everyone had suggestions. There have been a lot of suggestions made about how to accommodate the pool and not raise a wall over 4 feet in the front, and to leave the west side open, because that is a lane that has 4 houses on it. So that is semi-public access. You can also see, the back house from the right of way and from the walking path. And we have covered this again and again. We were in a difficult position. We're in the same position you're in about that Jill wants to have the entire yard serve, the entire wall fence / serve as a pool fence. That's the difficulty.
Well, but I guess my question is, the Fort Lowell Review Board, I don't know the technical name of it, the Fort Lowell
Historic Zone Advisory Board.
Approved the project as it's presented with several conditions. And Jill has just said she's okay with those conditions. And so I'm wondering why, I'm wondering what we're debating here. I mean, it seems like that's agreement to me. I don't know. What am I missing, Jill?
Well, no, we take into consideration the advisory board's recommendations. We are not obligated to adopt them 100%. We, as you know, we always want to know what they say, and that's why we ask so many questions about them. But if I see these as still, there's going to be a problem down the line, because it says that the front wall does not exceed 4 feet in height except surrounding the front gate. So you've got a 4-foot wall that is still not going to meet the pool requirements. So we're just punting this down the line, and I doubt that that there's a variance for pool height, pool fence height, So I think we just need to maybe evaluate. We may never finish this review if we don't just evaluate, can we live with these things, and then worry about, I would like to see the fence, the pool fence as much as possible separately, so away from the wall, so that it could be, the wall could be lower. You know, and I don't know, I mean, it seems like people have talked about this. I mean, we can say that, and then the director will make her decision based on all the facts. I mean, does that make sense?
Well, I guess so. I guess so. Let me see. I've got a couple other questions. Okay, well, can somebody help me then? I still have one more question about the process that got us here. The Historical Advisory Committee, the Fort Lowell Historical Advisory Committee, how did it get to its recommendation? Which is again just a suggestion. It's not binding, but how did they get there? I mean, was there something wrong with the process of how they got there, or
No, well, at our last meeting, when we remanded the case back, see, we had
reviewed it, I remember, yeah.
Yeah, we continued the case back in April, and it was never uncontinued. It was never because we wanted to be sure that Fort Lowell's, the advisory board saw the revisions. So that's why in mid-September, we said that we requested we move to remand the case back to Fort Lowell so it would start the process. They would review the revisions that they had never seen. So their motion on October 3rd special meeting was based on that, you know, on reviewing the revised plans. So that's how we got there. So they reviewed the revised plans and made this, you know, made this motion. Right?
Actually, Terry, if I can correct you, there were revised plans that you saw. And then during that, when it came back to us on the 26th, there was another set of plans. This is actually the fourth set of plans or more. Plus.
Well, then I'm confused because I was understanding that you never saw the plans, that the ultimate revised plans, right?
There were
Right.
plans. So there were,
Previously.
yeah, so there were plans that were submitted and they were posted that included revisions from the first round, of Fort Lowell.
Review.
Now I'm trying to think. And then we posted those for the 26th, which was the Fort Lowell review. But just before, unbeknownst to staff, Paul uploaded other revised plans on the 25th. So what he presented on the 25th, staff didn't even know that he had submitted revised plans. So they looked at those plans, Fort Lowell looked at those plans, and then Fort Lowell opted to continue it based on some further discussion. And then he revised those plans and we uploaded them before the meeting. He had a week to turn those plans around. So we got them uploaded as quick as we could.
Right.
So that Fort Lowell could review them.
Right. That's why the case wasn't on the 28th, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. So basically, I mean, the sequence has been off because we're not supposed to be reviewing. It makes it very difficult for us to review different versions of the plans. And then, as Paul just mentioned, they had sort of a design thing when they reviewed the property on the 3rd. And so the plans we're seeing do not reflect all the revisions that they agreed to make at that meeting on the 3rd. Correct?
Correct. We don't typically have them revise plans between Fort Lowell and your meeting because you, as you said earlier, are getting the information of how Fort Lowell voted, but you are your own separate entity. So you don't have to vote as they vote. So we keep the plans the same. And that was from a request that came a while ago.
No,
a couple
and
of
that's
years
fine.
ago.
Right. I think what we're just doing is asking questions about the motion and how it affects the plans we're looking at right now. You know, what what agreement, what discussion that Fort Lowell had with the applicants on the 3rd. So that's what we're trying to understand, right? But we're not bound to accept that same discussion or anything like that. So is there another hand raised that hasn't been answered under Zoom?
That's still Rose and Irene. Oh, they probably just forgot. I think they took it.
Okay, thank you.
This is Jan. I just want to clarify, I think even though he's not part of this review, Greg Clark makes an excellent point, which I did a much poorer job of articulating, which the whole purpose of the pool fence is to provide safety and keep kids out of it. And so to then translate that as a justification for a perimeter fence just doesn't make sense. And so I think it goes to the homeowner to figure out how to safely enclose their pool and meet the code. It doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a perimeter fence. And in fact, the perimeter fence does nothing to keep anyone but neighbors out of the pool.
Right. So, and the fact that Fort Lowell wants some of the portions to go down to 4 feet, it would already be non-compliant if the perimeter wall were used as the pool fencing. So I think we just have to keep that.
And I think that's just what I've been chafing at is trying to have a perimeter fence be adapted to somehow satisfy pool fence requirements. And I'm just not going to be comfortable with that.
Okay.
I will say, having put a full pool in my rear yard, that it is not just related to the fence. Typically you have to have an alarm on the doors. So our perimeter wall is the fence for our pool. And then we had to add these really high screechy alarms for all doors that access the backyard where the pool was. So it was a double level of security.
That is correct. And that is what we plan to do with ours as well. Everything that we proposed here, we've thoroughly thought through that would meet the guidelines.
For the pool.
For the pool.
Okay. Joel, do you have other questions?
No, I not right now. Thank you though. I appreciate it. You know, I'm just trying to balance all the equities here and just.
Oh, it's very difficult. Yeah.
Difficult, and I, you know, I have to say I feel for the homeowner because this can get long and frustrating, and just hope we can find a way to help this along somehow. That's all. You know, and I also want to be agreeable. I'm an agreeable guy, so you know. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate that, Joel.
Carol?
Yes, I had a couple things. This is a difficult situation, and it's a difficult situation because we're trying to provide visibility to a property that is at the back of the lot and is partially obstructed by a listed property in the front of the lot. So you already have kind of a difficult situation and limited visibility. It's always been my understanding that the restrictions in terms of height for fencing were primarily for visibility. And so you want the 4 foot because it provides visibility to a home that is either listed or it's contributing. And in this case, it seems like this solution does do that. The problem is, and I think please correct me if I'm wrong, is that people are concerned that it will be setting a precedent for future types of, you know, walls that would be higher, but maybe, you know, don't fit the character of the neighborhood. So I don't know. I'm really kind of conflicted here, and I too feel very bad for the homeowner who has had to revise this multiple times. This doesn't look like a very big yard to me. I'm not sure. I'm not real great with scale. But it looks like a fairly small yard. And so the idea of fencing the whole thing, you know, I can see that. I mean, I know a lot of people that have pools in their backyard and they just fence the whole backyard rather than try to put a fence around the pool. You know, it's done multiple ways. Unfortunately, we don't, you know, I drove by this property to try to get a feel for it, but unless you're like really in there, it's really hard to tell whether the pool could be fenced independently and still not, you know, be an obstruction either to the use of the pool or to the house in the back. So anyway, I guess I would like some comments from, you know, I'm looking at what the neighborhood review board suggested. And it seems to me that if they are willing to accept that and that we make something in the motion to the effect, and I think they did do that, about this not being something that, you know, that this being an exception. I think they talked about that. You know, I'm inclined to kind of go with what they've suggested, since there's been so many reviews and I don't, you know, I don't see another alternative here.
Okay. Can I move on to Savannah? Savannah, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Sorry. Yeah, I'm with Carol. I'm sympathetic to the balance of safety, security, the configuration of the site, and that it's a front yard and a backyard and a side yard, and then just the conditions relative to neighbors and the street. And we have seen this multiple times now. I think there is obvious and creative effort to address concerns, and primarily with regards to historic being visibility of the structure of the property and compatibility with its kind of historic nature originally, but also just moving that into the future, right? And so I'm compelled and appreciate the current design for trying to respond to that, but again, trying to deal with the condition of the pool, and then the solution of the you know, maintaining that 4 feet solid wall, which per the UDC TSM, it does say new solid walls or fences at the front of the property should be no taller than 4 feet. So having the more transparent solution above that to meet the pool safety issue seems to me to be a good compromise. It seems to address the concerns. So that's sort of where I'm at. I also appreciate kind of the, you know, trying to balance where the gate is and try to fine tune a solution there that provides that visibility, but maintains this, obviously, the security and the latching and the requirements of the pool. I guess my only question, like confusions that I had was, well, first of all, being completely convinced that someone standing on the street can see the structure. I mean, I was curious about the floor elevation of the house relative to the elevation of the front gate, because if the house is, you know, well below that elevation, then you won't see it well. So that was my first question. And then my second question was, it seemed to me that as you guys were designing it during the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board meeting, that the solid walls on the west got taller, and that just surprised me. So those were my 2 questions.
Should I answer that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and anyone.
I have a few pictures, and I think pictures are worth 1,000 words, even with drawings, but if I can share for a minute.
Hold on, Elaine, let me make you a co-host so you can share. Okay, you should be able to share, Elaine.
Can you see my screen? Yeah,
No.
now?
Now it's starting. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is the house as it is now, 2023. This is the front house that's contributing on the National Register. This is what we're talking about, lumpy walls. This is the existing fence, which we think went in maybe in 2018. There were fences on that, fences at different positions here throughout the years. This is the lane we're talking about on the west side. These are the current openings. This is seen from the walking path. So there's a walking path on Fort Lowell. This is the adjacent property to the west. This is what we're talking about previously about visibility through. On the other side of the wooden fence, there's open wire fence and there's Ocotillo, then it goes to this old wood fence. That's the rear house that you can see through the wire fence. So you do have to walk up the lane to look through the wire fence to see the rear house. This you can see the existing pool. Or the pool that's under construction.
Okay.
This
It does
is,
look relatively flat though, so if you did stand right there, you could see above that 4 feet and see the full house.
yes,
Is that right?
if you're taller than I am, yeah.
Mhm.
This is actually the Pima County Assessor pictures. And we're talking about the existing wooden fence. You can see that over the years. In 2005, this was varying height old fence that was replaced at some point. And that's in 2005. Interior, the pool is over here now in front, kind of in front of this nicho.
Hmm.
And that's interior, that's the rear house that you could only see this if you were in the yard. But there's also discussion about other walls. That's the other wall. This is the east side wall where there'd be a metal fence on top. So I just thought it might be helpful to see pictures.
Yeah.
Very much. Thank you. Did those walls right there remain?
Jill, do you know? I mean, these walls are all existing.
For the most part, there are some walls that have been taken down, but for the most part, they still exist.
Okay, that's all I have for pictures.
Okay,
Thank you, Elaine.
Just for
Okay.
clarification, Elaine mentioned, and she might have misspoke, that the wood fence, the 6-foot wood fence along the front area went up in 2018. I can date it back to 2008 just on Google Street View. And when I had looked previously, there's been some type of fence there for several decades. But
That's what
2008, that's just Google. And I think that's probably what you meant, Elaine,
That's what I
2008.
was showing with 2005. You could see it's not the same fence, but there's been a wood fence.
And our proposed plans would provide more visibility than there is currently today.
Okay, so I have a question about the Fort Lowell motion for you, Jody. It says that the color of the proposed perimeter walls are reviewed during construction as a courtesy review. Is that because color is not under the purview of historic review?
It is. It is. I can answer for Jody. She wasn't at that meeting, but it was literally a session that went on for 2 hours. It was
Like this,
insane.
yeah. So
And
the
so,
really
instead of a minor review, which costs and requires an application, the applicant agreed to discuss color during construction.
okay. So is that acceptable in a motion, Jody?
That's however you want to frame it. The minor review would just ensure that she would have to pay and submit for that minor review, but it would ensure that it is done. But sorry, I was on mute and Elaine got to it before me, but color is under those 4 items that fall under the May section of the technical standards manual: enclosures, utilities, color, and landscaping. So it's, if they
Right.
want to review color, then that falls in there. It's a May.
Okay, so the kind of thing is we could recommend whatever we want, and then the Jody's office and the planning director could decide if they want a minor review, if that's something that's they feel is important enough, to do.
And it's not out of character. I mean, there's been times where the Historic Zone Advisory Board and PRS have done a minor review for, design or of a gate or something like that. So it's not out of character.
So, and then what about the locations of the mobile vehicle parking? When Paul presented the plans, he said they've used that forever, and it's some residents of the neighborhood don't like people parking there, but there's nothing. It's not like when you have to get parking approved if you're in town or something like that, or a truly residential neighborhood as opposed to a spread out thing. I mean, is that true? I mean, is that, I understand why they put it in the motion, but do you think we ought to, what are your thoughts on that?
So parking, I mean, generally they, as I understand it, if it's related to like a new construction, like if they were building a new house or an ADU or something like that, they have to show how it's parked. So they would have to show those parking spots on there. It seems to me that the parking was more illustrative in this case, and parking based on like historic aerials that I was looking at, parking has been in that location for several decades.
Right. So, I mean, it's really up to whoever makes the motion to leave that in or not, I think.
Correct.
Folks.
It's your prerogative. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what we ought to do, we ought to just quickly look at this motion and see what we want to keep in and what we want to keep out, if that's a model we want to use, because I think further discussion isn't going to improve our ability to solve their problems.
Do you want me to share my screen so you can see their motion?
Did anyone else but me print it out? Maybe not. Why don't you go ahead and
I don't even have a printer, Terry, if we're being honest.
oh cool. Okay, well let's have Jody share that then.
Let me find it. No, that's not it. Of course I offered that. Oh, here it is. Can you see it? It's I'll increase the size.
Yeah, so who might be willing to make a motion that would want to run through this? Savannah, how about you?
Well, we were, I think there were a couple things on here that we had talked about that we have differing opinions on.
Well, then that's what we discuss. I mean, if somebody goes through these, I mean, do we like these conditions, or do we want to change it? But somebody who's going to make the motion needs to make some notes. Did anyone else print it out but me? I'm not saying you had to print it out. I'm not, did anyone? Because that might be helpful to write it on there.
I just want to mention really quick in part of this motion, and Elaine, absolutely correct me if I'm wrong. I think that one little portion where it says in masonry sections of the west perimeter wall meandering and lumpy, that's totally fine, and vary between 3 and 5 feet. And then right after that, it says southern portion of the west perimeter wall is 5 feet in height. I think that's inaccurate because we're not doing anything to the southern portion. I think the intention was any part where there was walls on that side would be 5 feet.
Elaine?
Refers to the solid wall that is, it's like 50 feet of solid wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
To replace the old fence, the old wooden fence that runs along the west side.
And is metal paneling different than the metal pickets? We didn't see that.
I think that is the metal, the partially bendy ones that are there, because it says in between wall sections.
So the metal paneling?
Right, it's just fencing.
Okay.
So that is correct, Elaine.
That's correct.
The motion says that the front wall shall not exceed 5 feet, or sorry, 4 feet. Does that mean the solid portion of the front wall,
Yeah.
not
I
the
think
full
that's
height
right.
of the front wall?
Referring to the solid part of the front wall.
Okay. I think if someone makes a motion, that should be clarified because the wall is technically
Mhm.
5 feet.
Yeah,
Oh, so what, how would that change? That the front wall does not exceed 4 feet in height except surrounding the front gate? Should be 5 feet?
The solid portion of the front
No,
wall
I
does
think
not
the
exceed
4
4
feet, the
feet.
masonry part they're referring to. The front wall, the masonry front wall does not exceed 4 feet in height, except surrounding the front gate, and they asked to narrow that area to the massing there. I believe, but that's not in there, actually in their comments, I don't think.
Okay, so basically that the masonry front wall does not exceed 4 feet in height except surrounding the front gate, and that front section be narrowed, or what would be appropriate wording?
Let's see, the front section.
It's in the, Jody, if you scroll up, that text is actually up right above there.
Okay, let's see, motion, hold on. Except surrounding the front gate at the eastern.
As long as, see where's the third from the bottom of that paragraph, as long as the overall height of the front wall does not exceed an average of 4 feet at the gate.
Okay.
And that's what needs to be changed?
But the metal
No,
part is up 5 feet in the front, so I'm confused.
If you just, everywhere you read wall, it should say solid wall.
Solid wall, okay.
This is Joel. I guess I'll make a motion, so we can discuss it and move forward. Just a second. I've got the numbers here even. Yeah.
I would, Joel, I would prefer if we have a motion that has to be, it's so lengthy that we need to be on board with it. So we need to find out if people are okay with just, that's what I'm trying to get somebody to respond and say, so co-chair Jack made the motion, but co-chair Hill made an earlier motion. So are they essentially the same, Elaine?
I know that where it says co-chair Hill, I was discussing the motion so that we were all, again, like you're doing, trying to get on board with.
Right.
what was
But
going
what I'm
to be
saying is
placed
you
in the
weren't,
motion.
yeah, you weren't the one, I mean, is your suggested motion that different from the actual motion?
No.
Okay, so let's focus then on the actual motion that co-chair Jack made. We're making a motion to recommend approval. We don't approve the project. We recommend approval of the project, okay? So, and so someone said that. So Carol mentioned in the second line, Joel, that the masonry front wall, is that correct? Or the solid front wall, what word are we gonna use there? Speak up.
Masonry.
Masonry, okay.
Yeah,
And
I think Elaine said that we should just use solid wall
But same, isn't it? Because
throughout, yeah,
our
instead of masonry, I guess, or it doesn't matter, probably either one.
okay, so that has to be mentioned. Okay, and then 4 feet is correct in the second line. And then
Yeah,
do we need to say anything about this thinning of the wall or whatever? I'm not seeing that.
well, I think we do have to say except surrounding the proposed gate, just so that it's in there.
No, that's good. But I mean, and then also someone Carol said there was something about thinning of the wall, thinning or,
It's kind of narrowing the massing, I guess, of the front. In their proposal, they talked about, I guess, making it that masonry part that is right around the curved part, right around the door, not quite so wide. And I don't know if there's an actual measurement for that we can refer to, or I guess I'd have to go back to the proponent and the architect on that, in terms of how much they're going to narrow that.
well, what we could say is that the solid front wall is reduced in massing. The massing of the solid front wall is reduced and the wall does not exceed. Does that make sense?
No, I think it has to be, it's the surrounding masonry work around the gate itself that is supposed to be narrower than it was in the picture that was given to us, is what the architect said in the presentation. Or maybe I misunderstood him, but he kept using his cursor to show that it was going to be, wasn't going to be as wide. The area around the gate was not going to be as wide, the masonry.
Reduction
right,
of
Carol.
the massing of the masonry wall surrounding the proposed gate.
Yeah,
Except, okay, where would we insert that then? Say that again?
Reduction of the massing surrounding the reduction of the massing of the masonry surrounding the proposed gate. And that would go right after the 4 feet.
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what did it, everything read along here that the fence proposed along the east lot line is metal as shown on the submitted plans? That the fence along the west lot line is a mixture of both masonry and metal materials? That the masonry sections of the west perimeter solid wall or masonry wall are meandering, lumpy, and vary between 3 and 5 feet in height. That the southern portion of the west perimeter masonry or solid wall is 5 feet in height with metal paneling in all sections. That the owner retain a rural quality of the property. That the color of the proposed perimeter walls are reviewed during construction as a courtesy or minor review, however people want to word that. That the proposed metal fencing rusticate. That the distance between the fence pickets is between 2 and 4 inches. And then, I don't know, do we want to include the thing about precedence?
Yeah.
Yes, because if we don't, it's going to come back
Okay.
in the future.
Okay, the overall project will be organic, that the opening with the gate maintains visual access to the rear of the property, that all references to future work are removed from the submitted plans, and that the locations of the motor vehicle parking be removed from the submitted plans, and that the proposed landscaping is not purview of the specific review. Does that work? I mean,
I don't really think we have to have the removal of the vehicle parking from there.
okay, we'll leave that in.
I don't know. I know one of the other pictures she showed had cars parked right in the front, so I don't know where they're going to park. I don't know if that's something we need to, is that really part of our purview to review?
Which?
Especially if it's been used for parking for decades.
Because they're not moving that, right? Like, it's just where they park their cars. Nothing's changing about that.
Correct.
I think they just don't want it on the plans because the neighborhood has been upset about that parking.
Well, I mean, it's her property. But it's like an accurate reflection of what the house and the surrounding area look like.
Okay, we can start off.
The park anywhere in the front, right? The idea was not to just establish parking places, right? Doesn't matter.
our purview is just the perimeter wall, it says, and the landscaping. Are we excluding landscaping, or we're just, I think we should just limit our purview to the perimeter wall.
I have a comment about the landscaping. Should we be referring this to Historic Landscape Subcommittee to review? Because we're not really in a position to review landscape.
Or just say landscape, Jody, can landscape come back for another review, or well, how do you want to handle that? Because it's already been said at our previous meeting, no, that the advisory board recommended that a certain gentleman who's a retired landscape architect be consulted. And I don't know, how do we handle that so that we can move forward?
Mike Bell
And he
is-
was consulted.
Yeah, Mike Bell is a retired, I think he's retired. He's a landscape architect who's on the Fort Lauderdale Historic Zone Advisory Board. And he's been part of this review process. And it's my understanding that he, as part of the first one, like Jill says, was consulted.
Yeah, because
the landscape.
Right, so the landscape remodel, we didn't hear about it in the presentation, but it's under what the description of the case is. So apparently
The landscape one came up when we initially reviewed it, like way back in April. Because Carol and I had asked questions about that, and then Jill had made a comment about how it was just going to be like all natural vegetation, and in a lot of the same places as currently exists. So we just said okay.
Quite honestly, I don't have the money or energy to really do anything with the landscaping anytime in the near future. So there's nothing's going to change on that.
Oh, I thought it was much more involved now. So my apologies. The plan looked more involved. So those are existing plants all shown on there. I'm sorry.
No, on those plants. So a long time ago, like as in last year, I was working with a landscape architect that was helping us with like plant choices and things like that. Those are on the plans here, but those aren't existing. Everything that's existing right now is just natural and native to the area. I don't really plan on doing much with plants at this time, especially around like the perimeter of the property.
So maybe that shouldn't be approved as part of this review if it's not really part of the plan.
Right, it was not, that's why we removed it, because we didn't address it at all.
So Jody, is that a smart thing to include in the motion?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last part again, Terry?
It's smart to just do like Fort Lowell did and say that the proposed landscaping is not within the purview of the specific review. Well, it is actually,
it's not part of the approval or whatever recommendation.
You can do that if you want to.
But it is within the purview because it's listed as supposed to be part of the review.
But she said she pulled it out and it's not, it's just a remnant on the plans. I mean, that's what's kind of problematic.
Okay. And
you can note just that the landscaping was not reviewed as part of this project.
The landscaping was not reviewed as part of this review.
Correct. You can note that. So if there's any questions later on or anything comes up about that.
Okay, then are we leaving in the locations of the motor vehicle parking be removed or leaving it as is?
I think it's just not reviewed by this entity.
What wording do you have? The locations of the motor vehicle parking were not reviewed as part of this review. Right? Or no?
I think that would be correct because we really don't know. I mean, like I said, one of those other pictures had a car parked in front. So I don't know what, normally happens in that neighborhood. There is, what the parking situation is actually.
Okay.
If people can park in front of their homes or how that works. I know it's a big issue. But it's not something that we received quite a bit, any information on in this particular proposal.
Right.
There's nothing in there that tells us, where the parking is, where there will be parking or how often there will be parking or anything like that, or what, the precedent is in the neighborhood.
Okay, so do we have enough with these edits for someone to read through this, and including that new wording, reduction of the massing of the masonry wall surrounding the front gate.
Joel, were you writing all of that down?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I got lost about halfway through. I was trying to get it all down and I just wasn't a
Okay.
fast enough scrivener. Apologize.
Can someone else do it then?
I'm glad to try it if you want to help me along as I go.
Well, is somebody more clear on what we discussed? Because we really do have to do this because we have don't we have 2 other cases?
Yes, you do.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'll move. I'll try it. Let me give it a try. Okay, this is Joel. I'm going to make this motion. I make a motion that we recommend approval of this project with the following conditions. That the front wall does not exceed 4 feet in height, except surrounding the front gate. That the fence proposed along the east lot line is metal as shown on the submitted plans. That the fence along the west lot line is a mixture of both masonry and metal materials. That the masonry or solid sections of the west perimeter wall are meandering, quote, lumpy, end quote, and vary between 3 and 5 feet in height. That the southern portion of the west perimeter wall is 5 feet in height with metal paneling in between the wall sections. That the owner retain a rural quality of the property, that the color of the proposed perimeter walls will be reviewed during the construction process as a courtesy review, that the proposed metal fencing rusticate, that the distance between the fence pickets is in between 2 and 4 inches, that the front gate is 6 feet in height and is not intended to set precedents for other properties within the preservation zone, that the overall project will be organic, that the opening within the gate maintain visual access to the rear of the property, that all references to future work are removed from the submitted plans, that the locations of the motor vehicle parking are
Were
not
not reviewed as part of this review.
are not reviewed as part of this review, and that the proposed landscaping is
Was not reviewed as part of the review.
it was not. Yes.
Yeah, and then before anyone seconds, I would suggest that right up at the front, after the first surrounding the front gate, that you say reduction of the massing of the masonry wall surrounding the front gate is the condition.
That's correct. And
Okay.
this is regarding case SD-0223-00027 5360 East Fort Lowell Road.
Right, okay. Now, second,
This is Ricky. I'll second.
okay, is there further discussion?
I just wanted to be sure that we said the front masonry wall does not exceed 4 feet.
I thought he said that.
Did
No,
we say that?
no, you know
Okay.
what I'm gonna do is every time I'm gonna put brackets that it's the front masonry wall.
Okay,
You know,
perfect.
whenever
Okay.
wall is mentioned, it will be masonry.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I cannot live through modifying this motion.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
so Joel, You made a motion and Vicky, you seconded, was that true?
Yes,
Yes.
that's, and I agree with that amendment.
Okay.
Thank you, but no, it wasn't a minute, it was rude, yeah, okay, so, any further discussion, or should we go ahead and vote on it?
I'm okay voting.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call roll, Terry votes aye, Joel,
Yes,
Jan,
While I have real sympathy for the homeowner in terms of how this has been handled, I really am not comfortable equating the perimeter wall with a pool wall. I do think there are more historically compatible ways to handle this. And I think the planning director can come up with a way of balancing interests, competing interests, but I don't feel comfortable having us by default take that on. So I will be voting no.
okay, so, Terry and Joel voted aye, Savannah,
Aye.
Ricky?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Okay, so it passes 5-1. Okay, Jody, do you want to mention the next steps if the owner would like you to do that?
Yes, sure. So both the recommendation of the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board and the Plans Review Subcommittee will be forwarded to the director. The director will, of PDSD, I should mention, the director will then send out a decision letter from that date, and they will or will not incorporate the conditions, the recommendations of either board. And then from the date of the decision letter, a party of record has 14 days to appeal. A party of record is you as the applicant or your representative, Paul. It could be the Plans Review Subcommittee, or it could be the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board. If it is either the Plans Review Subcommittee or the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board that opts to appeal, it can't be one person that appeals. They will have to have a special meeting to vote on whether or not to appeal the project. It's a publicly noticed meeting. They have to have a quorum. You would be notified if they opt to do that. If there is no appeal, then you would just need to submit revised plans for the conditions of the decision letter and put them in, and staff would review them to make sure that all the conditions are met in the revised plans. And you'd finish out your permit.
Okay.
If
Thank
there
you
is an
very
appeal,
much.
oh, I should note, if there's an appeal, it goes to mayor and council. While it's going to mayor and council, and until mayor and council makes their decision, you would not be able to finish out this permit.
Got it. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate, I know that this is trying on everybody, not just me, not just the architect, all of you as well too. So I appreciate your patience, your willingness to continue to work through this.
Well, thank you, and thanks, everyone.
thanks, Jill. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, we best move on. Case 3C is TPPRE 0923. It's 00327 at 847 North Stone. And this is adaptive reuse of the existing historic buildings, proposed offices and cafe. Courtesy review, it's in the Miracle Mile National Register Historic District. It's a contributing resource. Jody, do you have background?
I do. This is what used to be a service station and along Miracle Mile, and they are contributing to the historic district. They had previously come to you for courtesy review, and there are some recommendations that went back and forth, and before they heavily invest in plans and moving forward, because it's a pretty quick review process, they wanted to come back for another courtesy review and get feedback from PRS.
Okay, and presenting.
Hi, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Rory Juneman, a land use attorney here in Tucson with Lazarus and Sylvan. With me is Robin Large. Also on the meeting is Rick Bright, who's the project architect. He's going to be doing most of the presentation. And then also our client, Marco Schreier, is on. He's actually joining us from Germany, and it is very late there, so I'll try to quickly go through an intro, and Rick will kind of present you what our question is to you. As Jody said, we had presented back in May to a few of you. I don't think everybody was on, but I want to, if I can share the screen. Thank you, Jody. Just to give everybody sort of a background, this is the building that is on Stone. It's south of Speedway, north of 6 St. Mary's. We're just south of the Sahara Apartments. It's a building that has been vacant, generally vacant for quite some time. It was built in the 1940s, early 1940s, and we did some research on this. The reason, as Jody said, we're going through this review is we want to, Marco, our client, wants to convert this into an offices for gem show dealers. He's a gem show dealer himself. He's been coming to Tucson since the 80s, and he identified the need for this use and then this property. But he also wants to use the front of the property as a cafe and a restaurant that's open year round. The gem show use, they'll use it year round, but a lot of the use will be during the gem show, but the cafe will be open year round, serve neighbors, residents in that area, anybody that's driving down Stone. So he's kind of using this as a dual purpose. In order to get the approvals, we need to go through the IID, and I think you understand that the infill incentive districts has a provision that says if this is a historic contributing property, we can't delist the property, make it a non-contributor as part of our renovation. So we're working with Jody to make sure that we can keep this property as a contributing property. The tricky thing about this property is it's been significantly the front facade has been significantly changed since the 1940s, and we can't take it back to the original 1940 facade because it's hard to see on this small drawing. But in 1940, there was no front facade. That was really the interesting part of this research is when they opened up this project or opened up this, it was an auto dealership and service station and gas station. When they opened it in 1940, it was 24 hours and it didn't have a front facade. There was no front wall to the project. So what we're trying to do is include a front facade that is respectful to that. It has it represents the opening. We can't do floor to ceiling windows over the entire front facade because it's just not cost effective. So what Rick has brought to Jody, and now what we want to bring to you, is sort of our thoughts and ideas on how we can represent that open facade, bring it back to close to what it was in the 1940s. The rest of the building we're leaving as is, gonna restore many parts of it. A lot of parts are in good shape right now, but try to restore it back to what it looked like in 1940s. But this front wall is kind of challenged, and so we'd like your input before we do our official review, because we figured there was going to be some discussion and some opinions on it, and that's really why we're here, is to get your thoughts and feedback. So with that, we do have, and I will show you, I think Rick has a picture. This is what it looked like in 2011-12 with the when it was designated as part of the Miracle Mile National Register District. It's not this isn't an HPZ property. This is a National Register District property. But this is what it looked like then. And then I'm going to turn it over to Rick, and he's going to show you what the prior owner did to the property, and then what we want to do to this property. Our client just recently bought it, knowing that he's going to have to sort of restore it to its contributing status. But I'm going to turn it over to Rick, and he can kind of walk you through that. So I'll stop sharing, Rick.
Okay.
Turn it over to you.
We'll see if I can share now. Well,
We can see it, Rick. You may not be able to on your end, but
oh, you can see it? Okay. So this is how it currently exists. So this black canopy is original. This boasting truss above the canopy was original and was stuccoed. Obviously, the brick was existing. This was all glass, which was reduced, and this is T111, which we want to get rid of. Overhead door was existing, and there are a couple small windows that were existing, and a third one down here that was added sometime later. So everything from this brick to that brick was completely open. And this has been renovated many times, and the last was this, which was never permitted. So the plan is to eliminate all this and recreate how we can without glass. So this is an aerial view from the back. So this is the back area. This here is a remediation. Apparently this was a dry cleaner, and so the state's doing some remediation, and this is going to be here for, from what I've heard, for 2 more years. So at this point, we're really not doing anything in here. This will just be loading and unloading, maintenance, whatever, until this goes away, and then we'll look at refencing this with probably masonry walls and redoing this in here. But while this goes away, we really can't do much. And this is the inside of the building, and we're looking towards stone, and this is the wall that's going to disappear. So one of the things we're looking at is uplighting these trusses so that they're visible from the street. And this is about as good as it gets in terms of old records. We have a couple of grainy photographs from the newspaper. We did find this, however. This piece of artwork was presented at the grand opening. So we have a lot of information on other things, but not a whole lot on the building. And so this is a rendering by the landscape architect. So the idea is to have a little seating area here. We've got a brick planter wall here, gabion wall here to kind of protect people here that are dining. And this is kind of an open public area. Marco, the owner, has some big rocks that he wants to put out here for display and just keep this open for public access. A little landscaping with some berms, bicycle parking here. And then this is kind of it gives you an idea of what the front facade is going to look like. So we can't go, all glass because that would just be cost prohibitive. So this is a kind of a concept of what we're trying to achieve. And the big question is these solid panels, what do we do with them? So here's an elevation. So the idea is to do this glass across the top and down the side. This is a little wider because we're going to have seating in here that looks out onto the street and up to the mountains. And so the question is, what do we do with these solid panels? My first thought was use the same material that the overhead doors, because it's something that's existing on the building. And so here's the photograph of the doors. So it would be covered in this. Jody's initial reaction was this was maybe a little too aggressive. So that's kind of what we're trying to get some feedback on. And so here's what it looks like from the perspective. So we'd have glass across the top. And as you can see the trusses. So at night, this will be lit and visible. So this gives you an idea of what if we use the same material as the overhead doors and what it would look like. The next one is to use metal panels. So all these little areas with the hatch is glass, and these are solid panels. So this is what it would look like here. So one thought is to line these joints up with the mullions on the glass. Another thought I had was use these same panels, but at the mullions for the glass, do this 2-inch wide strip to match the mullions, and then the field would be these bigger panels. So those are kind of the two thoughts on what to do with these areas that are solid. So we're kind of looking for some feedback on thoughts, directions. So
Yeah, let's go ahead and start and get feedback from who would like to begin.
I'll start. I mean, I remember this one well from reviewing it not that long ago. And I think the general takeaway was that kind of keeping this as open as possible was the right kind of concept direction, but understanding that you don't want to do the whole facade glazed, right? We need some solid portions to kind of break down or have a little more environmental control. So I think what we've proposed is fine. I guess I was curious a little bit about your program. It seems like you just have one main entry door. So is that patio? It's not like a served restaurant patio or anything like that? Or do people just go out there after they have their food and eat and leave?
I didn't bring a floor plan, but there's a lot of gallery space in here, and then we have some spaces for the individual vendors. But there's a door at the back when they go back to.
I was just curious about the cafe, if it's people going in and out all the time, and if that's really, they're sharing an entrance with everyone else. Is that right?
Yes. So this overhead door will turn into a storefront with double doors.
You're showing me an image of the back. I thought
Of
we
the
were talking
back.
about, yeah, I'm talking about the street facade.
Yeah, so there'll be gallery space in the front and then all the way through to this back entrance we're going to make.
So, Rick, I think part of what you're saying is the office, the gem show dealer offices will be accessible from the rear and from the front, but the cafe will be accessible only from the front, and it won't. It'll be a shared entrance for gem show tenants, but also for the cafe if they want to sit outside, right?
That's correct, yes.
Got it. Okay.
And then we'll have some space. I mean, we got a high top counter here that you can set at as well. So the idea is they can come into the cafe, they can wander around and look at some of the displays that are in this gallery space, or they can go out here and enjoy their coffee or whatever.
Got it. Okay.
And so where is the thing that Jody felt was aggressive? Show us on where it would be on this picture.
Well, there's this roll-up door.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this is a close-up picture of the door. So we'd use this material on that solid part.
And
So for the roll-up door?
No. So these
You're just saying
parts,
you're inspired by a roll-up door. I'm gonna use metal panel and horizontal.
right, to
Just
do these solid panels.
Okay. I mean, is it aggressive because of like literal and that it evokes garage doors or something like that? I guess I don't mind it. I think it's cool.
My concern was that, originally this was kind of an open area, and, with the glass, it kind of represents that open area. But in adding that metal paneling to match that garage door, you're introducing this vertical element. I didn't say aggressive, but I was concerned that it was this vertical element. Oh, sorry, horizontal. I'm challenged today. Horizontal element to the front, and it just kind of draws the eye. So I was suggesting that maybe a more flatter surface to kind of just create that open, flat feel that was originally there would be more appropriate. That was my concern.
Got it.
material or flatter material that wasn't ridged?
Well, she's talking about flatter. This is flat,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
right?
Like, what would you think, or just eliminate those panels and have that sort of open framed areas?
Yeah, so this version that they have on right now is just a flat panel version. It carries the mullions across that are already in the glass, but it just is a kind of a fadeaway idea instead of having that horizontal ridge going down there, drawing attention to itself.
It seems like it has a major thickness to it. I mean, usually see you could just fit solid panels in a storefront system, but this looks like you're wanting more of like a mass thickness to these solid pieces so that they do kind of stand out. Is that right? That's what it looks
Yeah.
like to me in the rendering.
Well, I thought about putting solid panels in here instead of glass. But to me, that looked a lot like a cheap 1960 strip center. I don't know if that's the look that we were going for.
So what is it that you're showing here? It's like a
Well, it would be, I don't know if you've seen these metal panels with the joints. That's what this is showing. I mean, we can't do one solid piece of metal here because of the expansion and contraction. So it has to be broken up somehow. Either by doing this or by doing this.
I mean, this seems like it's your preference. I think it seems fine to me. I don't know what I'll let others speak, but it seems pretty minor.
Any other comments?
Is
Savannah?
there a recommendation from your side regarding the color of the solid parts of the wall? Because the rest of the building will remain or go back to that white that originally had from the opening. Currently showing like a metal gray color of that wall. Is that of a concern for you, where that would be a more lighter color, which might, step back a little bit optically, or remain with like the whatever that is, light gray metal look? Because we've also been discussing back and forth. It was just interesting to see also with what you would feel comfortable. And so I don't know if that is of a major concern. If you would like to rather have it in a color or in a like a silver stone or a white, or should it rather be a light gray as it is indicated here in the rendering?
I kind of like the light gray myself, but that's just me. So what do the rest of you think?
Terry, this is Joel. Do you have a picture of the building as it currently sits there today?
Yeah,
Yep.
you should use that first.
So this is it.
Okay.
So here's the roll-up door that I've got a close-up picture of.
Oh, okay.
And I have to tell you, this is in my neighborhood, and I walk by it all the time when I'm walking my dogs, and I very much like the look of the building. What are you proposing for the left side where those two columns are? Can you show me a picture side by side of what you're proposing with how it is now and how it'll look after you've done your work? You know what I'm you understand what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, that picture
So
you
these,
showed with the panels in the front of the rendering of what it would look like later. So can you bring that up on the same slide, is what he's saying, a side-by-side view?
On the left-hand side, yeah, that's right.
yeah, I can switch back and forth. I can't bring them both up.
Okay, that's fair enough. So what will the lower where it says option one there, what will that material be just above where it says option one there?
This material will be the same as the overhead doors.
Okay, I see.
It's like a corrugated metal panel, Joel.
Okay. Thank you, Savannah.
Yeah, here's a close up of it.
Oh, I got you. Okay, I see. I wasn't putting it two and two together. I appreciate it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. It's a great
Yeah,
old
this-
building. Yeah, so I'm glad you guys are, working on it.
Well, Joel, since you're in the neighborhood, how do you feel about color? I mean, I'm sort of with Terry on the, sticking with the more neutral or warm gray, but
I am too.
yeah, there could be some excitement and some precedence. I mean, there is some color in that neighborhood in a maybe
Yeah.
more fun way, or maybe more expressive.
Yeah. Yep. I'm kind of with you, but that's just a bias of mine. I like the muted colors.
Yeah.
So
Well, there will be some colors in the landscaping out front.
yeah.
I like this picture where it's more of that white kind of color. I
This,
think it matches better. Yeah, I think it doesn't stand out as much.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's like a warmer color sort of too, right? It's
Mhm.
kind of tanner. Feels
Yeah.
It almost looks like it's evocative of the brick in that drawing. I don't know if that was
Yeah.
intentional.
well, that's problem with the rendering software. I mean, here's the same view and it looks a little different than the landscape version.
Are you gonna, it looks like from this too, that you're gonna have, some detailing in terms of different color for the upper part of the flat kind of, what would you call portico or whatever that comes out. So would that
This
match
canopy.
the lower wall? In this, it does.
You're talking about this part here? This
Mhm.
canopy?
Yeah, I'm not sure the technical name for it, but it looks like you've got a brighter white and then maybe the lighter gray. And then that lighter gray looks almost like it matches the wall. Was that your intent or
Yeah, let me find
it's the picture that's up right now?
yeah. So this is the original one, which is really grainy, but you can see this is kind of darker in here.
Oh, it was quite a bit darker. Okay.
Yeah, so we're trying to recreate that.
Okay.
With
Gotcha.
maybe two tones here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to tell whether that's painted on or that's recessed. But that's all we have to go by.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. But I like that. I mean, I like that would be, differentiated, kind of shows the detail, and then maybe that would match the whatever color you choose for the solid walls in the front, to have them both match.
Well, this is the one I prefer because we have this mass with the brick, and this is a little bit more massive to kind of match, play off the brick, as opposed to this one, which kind of divides it up. But it's kind of a personal preference.
Yeah, it kind of is in a way because it had to do, it was a garage or a car dealership, correct?
Right.
So, I mean, the corrugated in a way, ties into that former use, but
Yeah, well, this is a material they would have had in the 40s.
yeah.
This is not something they would have had in the 40s.
And this is Rory, you probably know this, that the purpose behind the Miracle Mile Historic District is really sort of car use focused, with our use being a dealership and a lot of the motor hotels. And so that may be another reason why, using that corrugated metal that's already on the building with the garage door might work on the front too.
Okay. So let's see, Ricky, are you done with your questions?
Yeah, wait, can I look at that one slide again that had the plants in front? I really like this. I just think it's a really good way to like bring life and people to that area, and I like there is shade for the outdoor seating,
Yeah.
which is so necessary.
Well, we got the
And then
canopy and then there's a big tree on the adjacent property. So this is
Hmm.
a shaded area where their seating is.
for the garage thing, I'm in favor of the horizontal lines versus the other one that kind of matches how the windows are set in there.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's all the comments that I have. Just thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then we've got Jan.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with either option. I too also kind of favor the corrugated metal. The one with the lines through it to match the windows almost seems too busy and distracting to me. But I like the concept, and I'm comfortable, comfortable with the proposal and with the preference for corrugated.
Okay, so applicants, do you have any other questions of us, or commissioners, do you want to add any other thoughts, or just now the next review would be a formal review, Jody?
Correct. It will be a formal review through the IID process.
Okay. I think that you guys are getting close. Do you have any other questions for us?
I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more,
It's great.
more
It's
brick
a-
and glass, the better.
Yeah, it's a great building.
Yeah, I don't think we have any other questions. We really appreciate the feedback, and I'd say, a month or two, or probably a little bit more, probably 2 months, we'll be back before you. But this is really helpful, and we thank you for your time and appreciate the feedback.
Okay, take care then. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks from Germany.
Thanks, everybody.
Late for you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so we're now down to item 3D, which is SD 0923 00102 at 2900 North Craycroft Road. This is for improvements to an existing pony field, including new sports field lighting, full review in the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone. It's a contributing resource. Jody, do you have background?
Yes, this project went to the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board on September 26th. It had previously been to the Historic Landscape Subcommittee, and they had commented on the project a while ago. But Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board voted to approve the project as presented with the following condition: that a tree native to the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone is proposed rather than an Arizona rosewood. And the motion passed with a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. And who's presenting?
Donnie. There you are.
I'm here. Hello. My name is Donnie Russell. I'm a project manager with the City of Tucson Parks and Recreation Department. I'll be the one kind of managing this project. Now, I've just started with Parks and Rec, so I don't have as much of the background, far back on this project. Please don't hurt me. I was hoping Rebecca could be here. She's far more competent than I am, but I think I'll get through it. So, if I could share my screen, Jody.
Yes, you're a co-host, so you should be able to share.
Okay. Can y'all see this now?
No.
No. Okay. Oh, wait.
Something's come. There.
There we go. So this is just an aerial view of the area that we're talking about. It's the pony field that's on what would be the southwest corner of the park, at the corner of Glen and Craycroft. There's already an existing field here. We're going to redo the field. It's going to, excuse me. So there will be new field surface and new grass surface in most of this area. There will be new fencing around the ball field, including on the outfield, to keep folks out of the field of play. New dugouts on both the first base and third base lines. And we're also installing new energy efficient field lighting on this one. Directly along the street that runs on the north side of the field, the entrance to the park, and down on the east edge of this area is called San Francisco Boulevard, I believe. We are going to remove some of the turf from this and put in more vegetation and some green stormwater infrastructure items. All of the turf in this area will be improved. There's going to be another, there's a existing picnic table up here, I believe. It will be really relocated, but within this area. And then there's a new picnic table going in on the south side of the area. So if I can, so here's the cover, part of the cover page that'll, so if y'all can see here, it's going to give you a little better idea. Everything with these further spaced apart dots is gonna be sprigged, resodded with sprigs. You've got your infield mix here, along with a different type of Bermuda planted here in the infield. Here and here are your new dugouts. There's an existing fence right now along the edge of this parking lot. That will be removed as part of this project, and we're going to put the curved fence here along the outside of the field of play. This shows this area along the edge of San Francisco is where they're going to be pulling out the existing turf that doesn't really get used, putting that in with DG and also wood chip mulch to cover, and more trees. We do the same thing up here, which unfortunately isn't shown on that. Give me just 1 second. And okay, so here's more on the San Francisco Boulevard, where we're going to be putting in the green stormwater stuff with the DG and the wood chip mulch around the new trees. I can scroll down here and get you to the landscape plans, which are going to show you where the rest of the trees are at. If you give me just 1 second. So this is a little hard to see. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here. So these trees, the ones that have the very faint plus sign in the middle, they're existing trees that are remaining. So we have 1, 2. So we have, it looks like 3 of them along Glen, and then everything, and then the rest of these are going to be new trees. The one suggestion that the preservation zone board did not like the Arizona rosewood, and it doesn't look like, I don't have the updated set of plans yet, but we are going to substitute those for different trees. We'll get something that'll make everybody happy. I mean, she suggested the rosewoods. I believe the historic landscape subcommittee approved the rosewoods, but the neighborhood advisory board didn't like it. And we were just using the rosewood more because of the size of the tree and to give a little more privacy in those areas. Down here is where the new picnic table is. Another new picnic table here. And we're putting new bleachers in here. We're taking the existing bleachers and putting them here. And as you can see, here's a new set of lights. Here's another one, and then 2 more over here. And folks, I will go on and ramble forever, but if you have any questions, feel free to jump in anytime.
Well, I tell you what, since it's been, if you feel the presentation is complete, why don't we just let people ask questions, and you may need to explain something else, because we're getting very long in the tooth here in terms of time.
All right, ask away, please.
Yeah, so who would like to start?
I'll go again. I thank you for the set of plans. I don't think we had these ahead of time, but they're clear. My only question is well, and I did find it in the meeting minutes, that it's all that dugouts, all that fencing, is that all chain link?
Yes.
Okay. And the heights are 6 feet? Is that what it's?
It's 6 feet along the perimeter. I believe the backstop in here is going to be higher than that. Safety issue. But yeah, I believe the rest of it is 6 feet. I will double check that while we're speaking.
Okay. Other questions, Savannah?
Well, I was just curious about the lights too. Is this kind of like a City of Tucson kind of efficient standard that you're using now for all these replacements? I'm assuming so.
Yeah, they're LED field lighting, so they're much more energy efficient. And they also you don't have as much light spillover from them as you do with traditional field lights. So the light tends to stay a lot more focused.
Thanks. That's great to hear. That's it for me.
And I apologize. The just so you know, on the fence height, well, let me just share my screen again real quick. So this fence there, it steps down. It starts as because of the ball on the field of play, it starts as 9 feet, then it steps down to 8, then down to 6, and then the whole way around the outfield is 6. Does the same thing here.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Joel. And this field will be a dedicated baseball field or softball field. No outfield used as a soccer field in the fall or something like that.
No, it's dedicated. It's a dedicated ball field, baseball field. Or actually, I think it's a little league size field. But
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Carol, do you have anything?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure about, there's no archaeology in this area, correct? Or it's all been mitigated? If so.
They will have an archaeological monitor.
Okay, great. Okay, that would be my only concern for the ground disturbance. Okay.
Okay, Ricky, did you have anything?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, Jan?
No, I appreciate that you've incorporated the recommendations from Historic Landscape Subcommittee, but I have no other comments or concerns. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, great. Who would like to make a motion? Don't all jump out at once.
I can, but I have to look up the number.
I'm in the same boat.
I'll do it. I've got it right in front of me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. In the matter of SD 0923-00102 at 2900 North Craycroft Road, improvements to existing pony field, including new sports field lighting. This is a full review on the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone. It's a contributing resource being evaluated under rehabilitation standards. We recommend approval as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, great. Is there further discussion? Okay, if not, I will go ahead and call roll. Savannah?
Aye.
Joel?
Yes.
Carol?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Ricky?
Aye.
Sorry, just have some, and Terry says, I pass the 6-0. Sorry about that dramatic exit there. Thank you. And Jody, does Donnie need to know anything from you about the process, or can you get with him later on it, or?
I can get with him later. Donnie talks to me all the time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, everybody.
You good? Okay, bye-bye. All right. Item 4, National Register of Historic Places nomination for Barrio San Antonio. We did that earlier. Item 5 is Task Force on Inclusivity recommendations. So 5A is discussion on best practices for naming of city and county owned physical assets. There's no report on that. Item 6 is current issues for information discussion. 6A is minor reviews. Jody, is Michael here to do that for us?
Yes, Michael is here.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Last week, I did 4 on-site minor reviews with Commissioner Ireland. We started off from West University at 317 East First Street with a roof replacement.
Okay.
I'm hoping that Joe, you want to be discussing this, or you want me to just give the summary?
Joel, did you want to give the summary?
You're mute. You have to unmute.
Joel, you're still muted.
Sorry. Trying to save time. So at 317 East First Street, there's a back house and a front house. Actually, interestingly, the house was built in 1937, but some roof tiles on the front house are going to be replaced with some roof tiles that are modern, but look very much almost exactly like the roof tiles that are currently there. The roof tiles on the back of the house were completely destroyed by a hailstorm, so they have to be replaced. In the back house, shingles, they're asphalt shingles that are going to be matched almost exactly. So I mean, yeah, just that simple. It was not a big deal.
Okay, so both tile and shingles are to be replaced, and it was fine.
Right, the front house, it'll be some roof tiles, and on the back house, it's asphalt shingles. Yeah.
Okay, and then the
And
second case.
The second case was at 720 South 2nd Avenue in Amory Park. That was addition of solar panels. There are already existing 9 models on the roof, but they were adding 5 more.
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, the addition of these were to just add increased capacity. There was some question about the panel, whether the previous panel was 200 amps or 125 amp. So we approved the addition of the new solar panels upon clarification of the panel, whether it was 200 amp or 125 amp. And they're going to check and verify that with Michael's office. So it was approved given those conditions.
And the third one was at 218 East 17th Street. This one was a storage container in the backyard.
Yeah, this was a tougher one. John Burr was there, and this is in Armory Park, and they have a real question about having containers put in the backyard. These are these big container things that are hauled by trains and then put on trucks. I'm sorry, Michael. No,
I just said, oh, that sounds different.
Yeah, and we approved it. We wanted to approve it in such a way that it did not set a precedent, because it just doesn't fit historically into the neighborhood, and we don't want people putting them in their backyard. At least Armory Park does not. But so we approved it based on several criteria. One, that the owner who placed the container owns the property next door, and that you cannot see it over the back fence. And that part that you can see, he's gonna cover with a corrugated tin that he took from a shed that was back there already. And because it was under a certain size, it would qualify as just a shed. So under those three very specific conditions, we approved it because it would have no precedential value in terms of placing more containers in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And the last one was at 408 East 16th Street for roof shingle replacement.
408, yes, indeed. I'm sorry, I gotta find my note here, sorry.
That
Yeah.
one was- Go ahead.
Okay, we gave, well, basically what it was is, again, these are asphalt shingles. The homeowner wanted to put up some very dark shingles. Again, John Burr from Armory Park did not like those. So what we did was we gave the homeowner 3 options that he could choose from, and he was going to go back to his architect and make a choice of one of those colors.
Okay.
Simple asphalt change of tiles. Roof.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Michael. Do you have anything else you need to say? You're trying to schedule new ones?
I'm working on new ones. I don't have them ready, but when I get them ready, I'm going to send out a request for a volunteer or volunteers.
Okay. Do we have 6B? Do we have any appeals?
We do have the pending Fort Law appeal, which is at 5259 East Fort Law. They appealed the director's decision for a new single-family resident. That appeal is being worked on, and it will go to mayor and council. We are going to keep you updated as to when the appeal will be heard by mayor and council.
Okay, is that for that new construction?
For a new single-family resident.
And it's the Fort Lowell Historic Zone Advisory Board.
Yes, it's the advisory board that is appealing the director's decision to approve.
And that's been a while, hasn't it?
No, it's not been a while. It's just the review took a very long time. But when the decision was made, it's just been like the last 30 days.
Okay, Jody, you sent me that decision letter, right? So we know what the appeal's on.
I believe I did. I can resend it again, though.
Yeah, because I'm pretty good about sending those to everybody, but I'm just curious.
Okay.
What was it? Can we ask? Appeal?
What was the
What was
appeal?
it?
It was a single family residence that was being proposed on a lot that was for the most part vacant, but had some adobe ruins there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
it was approved, but the Fort Lowell changed their mind.
They had concerns about some of the information that was presented, and decided that you have to have a special meeting. So they had a special meeting and voted to appeal it. Once the report is written and it's docketed, we'll send out information to PRS.
Okay.
And the advisory board.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other appeals?
No.
Just the usual that you're working there. No, never mind.
Yes.
60 is zoning violations. You work those as usual and so forth.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anyone want to raise a review process issue other than the length of the meeting?
I will say, so there was a concern brought up that public comment was being sent directly to
Okay.
the PRS members. I did query the city clerk's office. So it is not an open meeting law for the public to directly email public comments to you. It is how you respond. So as long as you are not forwarding it on to other PRS members or responding or anything like that, it is not an open meeting law violation. It's to get it, no big deal. It's how you treat it after you get it.
Okay, so did I
That's
make
the issue?
And when Elaine emailed me and I responded to her about how we handle comments.
And you responded just directly to her and not copying everybody else on PRS?
I don't believe I copied everyone else. No, I didn't copy everyone on PRS.
We were not copied, no.
Then that is not a violation. It's when you start copying everybody else that it becomes an open meeting law.
Well, but I think that's what happens if we're copied and not blind CC'd. So I think some of them are violations. And, you know, it would be, I think we need to, I don't know what to do.
It's not you. If they CC you or BCC you and you guys get it, that's not the open meeting law violation. The open meeting violation comes when Savannah, sorry, Savannah, I see your picture, so I'm just throwing you under the bus. Savannah says, oh, look at what we got. And she sends it to Ricky and to you and to Joel and to Carol. That's
Right.
and Jan.
Yeah.
Sorry not to leave you out, Jan. That's the open
Okay.
meeting law. And then
Right.
you guys, and
Yeah.
then you guys start discussing it via email. That's the open meeting law violation.
It's discussion amongst ourselves, but basically, if I respond to somebody, it's always BCC. So it's fine.
If you respond to somebody, you shouldn't respond to all of PRS. You should only respond to the person who sent it to you. So if Elaine sent it to you, then you just respond to Elaine. You don't respond and copy or BCC everybody. That's the violation. You just want to leave everybody else off.
I have a
Right.
related concern, which is if Elaine Elaine emails all of us and one of us starts engaging with her substantively, are there ex parte concerns?
I would say that in my experience, you probably want to declare your ex parte communication. So when the meeting comes up, you can say, you know, I had this discussion with Elaine on such and such date. So if you
It
do
doesn't
have,
necessarily disqualify you.
no, but you are declaring that you had ex parte
Got it.
communication.
Okay.
And you would want to relay the ex parte communication that you had. I mean, if
Sure.
it's just thanks.
Oh,
that's not
yeah,
a big
got
deal.
it. Yeah.
And I think we should avoid that because we've had that in the past.
No,
where
I agree. That's why I asked the question.
we've had former PRS members discuss cases with people, you know, outside of any kind of meeting. You know, and I think that's inappropriate. So
I'm thinking more about parties involved.
Yeah.
Because I think we all seek counsel from different people from time to time that aren't involved. And I think that's a little different than a party.
yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about a plans review member going to an applicant and discussing this case with them outside of us. And that was
Sure. Oh, yeah. Got it. Oh, I thought you meant they were prior. Got it.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have one more, actually two, and I'll be really quick. One thing I forgot to mention last meeting, it was really painful. But Jody, if there's any way that you can ensure or ask or encourage that presenters, applicants know how to use Zoom. And I realized the one guy was a fill-in, but that was just a real waste of everybody's time and unfortunate.
Understood. He kind of got tossed into that at the last minute, from what I understand. And the person who was supposed to represent him was like not available at all.
Yeah.
So I understood. Yes, it was painful. I agree with you. And yes.
Yeah. And the only other, just a question is, does the city have any plans to go back to hybrid meetings? I mean, a lot of the advisory boards are doing hybrid and other organizations. And
We-
while I appreciate this while I'm traveling, and I know for a lot of people, it's a lot more convenient. Personally, I find in person, I'm just so sick of Zoom that I would look forward to a few in-person meetings.
So we are, Fort Lowell is our guinea pig. And we've been doing hybrid meetings. We'd have 3 or 4 hybrid meetings with Fort Lowell. We are gearing up to do a hybrid meeting, with Armory Park. And at the request, it won't be this month because we want to do a test meeting first to make sure all of our stuff works and jives, but likely November. We did put it out to PRS. You may have not been present when we did that, about doing a hybrid meeting for PRS. That's an option. And it was something that I assume everybody's thinking about, when I put it out there. So it's your prerogative. So I think that we put it out to West University, and West University is kind of more along the lines of doing the virtual meetings, continuing to do the virtual meetings. So we're open to it. We just want to test for it. And there were just recently guidelines put out by the city clerk that were adopted by mayor and council regarding the hybrid meetings and how to conduct them. We just got them recently. So it's, I definitely, if you guys want to do it, we can figure something out.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I, for one, would like to actually meet some of you in person. Since I've been on the committee, we've only done these virtual, so that's just my input.
And to be clear, I have no control over the full commission. That is the city clerk's office. So if you wanted to do hybrid with the city clerk's office or meet in person, for the full commission, you would need to take that up with the city clerk.
Thanks for clarifying that, Jody.
Yeah.
But within PRS, we could just technically decide amongst ourselves, we want to start hybrid.
Yes, because
Is that
our
correct?
correct. PDSD staff we are the facilitators for PRS. So that's why you don't do teams for PRS, because I had a
Yay.
connection and I wanted to do
Appreciative of
Zoom.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I would like to see the people who I've been in meetings with for the last 3 years.
Amen.
I would kind of like
We
that.
turn our
too. It's
videos
not
on from
nice.
time to time.
And actually, I would sort of like on some of these Fort Lowell ones. And I don't know if the commission has ever done this. It would almost be nice to meet on site, because there's a couple of, not normally, but like this last one that we had today, it would have been nice to actually see that property in person. Elaine's pictures were extremely helpful. But I don't know if that's ever done, but
it could be done.
Know in advance too. What's
yeah, we'd have to know in advance, because it would be additional, trouble
Right.
to get there and stuff, but.
Yeah, and people do often visit the properties on their own like you did. We've done that for Historic Sites Review Committee a few times, but I think this was a very complex case and interesting. Yeah.
It was a tough one.
It was a tough one, and we'll see how it pans out if she ever gets to build a wall because of the pool stuff, but it's complicated. So, yeah. Any other review process? Okay, item 7 is summary of public comments. We read into the record the 2 we received. Did we receive any others, Jody?
We did not.
Okay, thank you for that. Future agenda items, item 8.
So expect another fun meeting on the 24th. We will have Campus Farms, the National Register nomination. We'll have a property in West University at 220 East Speedway. We will be doing a courtesy review, and we have a historic landmark review that we'll be doing as a full review. I think I got, yeah, 1, 2. So I was trying to keep you I'm trying to keep you at 4. I'm trying to not go above 4 for you. But we have kind of a, we have a backlog, so I'm trying to push people through.
Right. Okay. All right, does everyone plan to be on the 24th?
I will not be there. I work that night.
Ricky is no, because that's a Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the rest of us will be there, so we have a quorum.
Yes, I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Okay,
I'll be there.
And Jody will probably send out a reminder and say, you assume, Jody, that everyone will be there except Ricky, and if that changes. So please do get back to Jody, because it really is a pain for us to have to, track y'all down.
Yeah, I'm sorry about yesterday. I had no idea that I was gonna have grandkids all day.
Oh, no, that's okay. We had a quorum for the full meeting. Yeah. Okay.
The night before.
Yeah, no worries. That happens. Okay.
Jody, when you say fun, are you worried it'll just go long, or are you being facetious, or is it going to be really fun?
No, because that's what it has been. Because I have 4 items, so
Okay. I just didn't know if there was a backstory there. I should anticipate. Okay.
I do expect that there probably will be some comments for Campus Farms.
Okay.
Because I know that there's commissioners that were proposing a larger area for designation. And that was a couple of years ago. And what U of A is proposing to designate is not those boundaries. It's significantly smaller. So I expect that there will be some comments for Campus Farms. The other ones I would say are not controversial. So hopefully they go quicker. I'm just being a snot because it's been a long day.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I have to jump off. This could be the longest meeting on record.
Yep.
And so we're adjourned at 4:25 p.m. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.